Chapter 519. Trying to escape? Tianyang smiled faintly as he looked at Yi Qingyu, who was burning his true yuan to escape. At this moment, he had broken through to the half-step sea of Soul Realm, and was no longer at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation base. If he still let Yi Qingyu escape, his reputation would be ruined. Moreover, as the young master of the Sky Demon cult, Tianyang wanted Yi Qingyu's many treasures and thousands of points. Air-treading secret technique. Tianyang growled, and in the next moment, his true yuan circulated, and the air-treading secret technique was used. He directly pierced through the void and shot out. This speed was not any weaker than some Sea of Soul Realm experts. Even some second or third level Sea of Soul Realm experts could not compare to Tianyang. Seeing this speed, everyone was dumbfounded. They could see that Tianyang was definitely not burning his true yuan. However, Tianyang's speed was faster than Yi Qingyu's. Tianyang, what kind of monster is he? It's one thing to be able to defeat Yi Qingyu with the cultivation base of the third level of the Dao Fire Realm, and it's another thing to be able to crush the Little Demon King after reaching the half-step Sea of Soul Realm. It's one thing to be able to stun everyone in the Zhukei Shogun Cave, but why is his speed so terrifying? Someone could not help but complain helplessly. Hearing this, everyone nodded. These words were exactly what they were thinking in their hearts. Powerful strength, overflowing luck, astonishing intelligence, speed, and so fast. In addition to that unknown flame and powerful physical strength, as well as a sword cultivation base that was so profound that it did not seem like it should be in this realm, Tianyang was simply a monster. An omnipotent monster. Enough talk, let's hurry up and follow. Otherwise, we'll miss this earth-shattering battle. At this moment, someone suddenly said. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up, and they all circulated their true yuan and soared into the sky to follow. The Little Demon King and the Shura Sword Monarch were both influential figures in the Great Void Secret Realm. Now, the Azura Sword King was chasing after the Little Demon King. He had even suppressed the Little Demon King before. This was definitely a battle of geniuses that would shake the entire Great Void Mystic Realm. They were so close. If they couldn't see the final result of this battle, it would really be a pity. At this time, Tianyang and Yi Qingyu had already left the Vermilion Bird Mountain Range and were flying north for dozens of miles. In just a few breaths, he had traveled dozens of miles. Even Yi Qingyu was shocked by his own speed. However, Tianyang's speed behind him was even more terrifying. He had the faint intention of surpassing him. This caused Yi Qingyu to be extremely shocked. Previously, his strength was enough to crush him. If he was surpassed by Tianyang in terms of speed, he would definitely lose his life. Damn it, Tianyang! I have no quarrel with you. Why do you have to keep pestering me? Yi Qingyu roared. The true yuan in his body burned even more fiercely as he sped up again in an attempt to shake Tianyang off. Unfortunately, Tianyang's void-treading secret technique was not something that could be broken by simply burning one's true yuan. If Yi Qingyu sped up by a fraction, Tianyang could definitely speed up by 10. No quarrel. Tianyang's lips curled into a cold smile at that. You try to kill me first, then you can't beat me, and now you say that you have no quarrel? Is this how you Sky Demon cultists behave? Bastard! Yi Qingyu could no longer hold back at Tianyang's words. He stopped in midair and glared at Tianyang. Worse comes to worst, we'll just die together. In the next instant, the true yuan in Yi Qingyu's body erupted wildly like a bomb, releasing endless light. Tianyang's eyes narrowed at the sight. However, all that followed was a soft chuckle. A strand of soul power, which seemed to be above this world, spread out and sealed Yi Qingyu's dantian in an instant. No matter how violently the true yuan in his dantian rippled, Yi Qingyu could not mobilize it, much less detonate it. Yi Qingyu's face paled at the bizarre sight. He stared at Tianyang in disbelief. What kind of move was this? You think we'll die together just because you want to? Wouldn't that make me lose face? Tianyang chuckled. His fingers moved rhythmically, and Yi Qingyu's expression rapidly changed along with Tianyang's movements. You? What did you do to me? Yi Qingyu's face paled as he stared at Tianyang in disbelief. Tianyang smiled faintly at that, his slender fingers slowly closing. It's nothing. I'm just using some tricks to seal. No, control your dantian. As Tianyang's fingers closed, Yi Qingyu could clearly feel his dantian being squeezed, and his expression changed drastically. What are you doing? I'm the young master of the Sky Demon cult. The only young master to have successfully cultivated the Sky Demon seal. I'm revered in the Sky Demon cult. If you kill me, you'll incur the frenzied vengeance of the peak second-rate factions of the central region. Yi Qingyu exclaimed in horror. Tianyang smiled faintly at that, not taking it seriously at all. He had heard similar words countless times. Seeing that his threats were useless and that Tianyang's fingers were closing even more rapidly, Yi Qingyu's face was drained of blood as he said, enunciating each word clearly. I can offer you my soul origin and serve you as my master. When the time comes, my life and death will be in your hands, and I'll be able to work for you. It's much more valuable than killing me. Yi Qingyu hurriedly said, the arrogance on his face vanishing, leaving only humility and respect. Tianyang raised an eyebrow at that. This little demon king sure had a lot of tricks up his sleeve. Meanwhile, the faces of the crowd who were rushing over behind him changed drastically at those words, disbelief written all over their faces. The little demon king is actually saying that he'll serve Tianyang as his master. How is that possible? The young master of the Sky Demon cult is actually going to make a genius of a third-rate faction his master. How is that possible? Still, even though Tianyang comes from a third-rate faction, his cultivation would not lose out to the geniuses of martial Holy Lands. If Tianyang allows it, I would be more than happy to be his slave. The one who spoke was a girl who appeared rather pretty. Although the crowd felt a chill at her words, they knew a thing or two. Tianyang's ability was truly frightening. And in this world, the strong were revered. Serving Tianyang as their master might seem difficult to accept at first glance, but it was an excellent choice when one thought about it carefully. Moreover, obtaining a slave who was the young master of the Sky Demon cult was a very profitable trade. Still, Tianyang smiled softly at that. Sorry, I'm not interested. It would be fine if you were my disciple, but a brute, sorry. Die. Tianyang smiled, and in the next instant, his right palm clenched. Yi Qingyu's eyes tightened and his face was filled with shock, unable to react to Tianyang's refusal. Still, there was no time for him to think. This was because his dantian had already exploded. Boom! As a fiery light flashed in the skies, countless pieces of flesh were vaporized into nothingness by the searing heat of his dantian's explosion. Below, countless people shuddered as they understood one thing. From now on, there would be no more Yi Qingyu, the little demon king of the central region. Chapter 520. The little demon king is dead? Everyone exclaimed when they saw the beautiful sparks in the sky. The little demon king, Yi Qingyu, was ranked third on the hunting list, close to second. He was a powerful genius who could dominate any region in the north, south, east, and west. In the end, he was killed by Tianyang so easily? Of all people, he had to provoke me. I'm afraid he's not Shirliji. Tianyang pursed his lips. He didn't care about Yi Qingyu's death at all. He had to deal with such a despicable person in the most decisive way possible. Otherwise, even if he took him as a sole slave, he would have many ways to rebel. This could be seen from the hatred in Yi Qingyu's eyes before he died. Even if he took him as a sole slave, he wouldn't be of any help. Instead, he would be like a bomb hidden by his side. Naturally, Heavenly Sun did not hesitate at all to directly kill him. However, this kid collected quite a lot of points. He can make up for my losses from not fighting for a month. Tianyang smiled. Due to the appearance of the 4 divine generals' cave abodes, the geniuses at the top of the hunting list didn't make any moves. Instead, some unknown geniuses took the opportunity to rush up. Of course, although the geniuses could defeat most of the geniuses, it was hard to guarantee that a true genius would appear. Tianyang came from a third-rate force, but he was able to reach first place. In the eyes of the crowd, he was a true genius. However, a man called Yuan Kai stepped on Yi Qingyu and carried Jun Aoyang on his shoulder. He was about to surpass Tianyang. Not bad. Yi Qingyu has more than 3,000 points. There are still a few tokens that he hasn't absorbed. If he absorbs all of them, it won't be a problem for him to defeat everyone. He took Yi Qingyu's space bag, which he had deliberately kept, and wiped away the remaining soul imprints on it. Then, he took out a few tokens. After that, the heavenly sun absorbed it, and in an instant, his points jumped from over 7,000 to over 13,000. It was more than twice the points of the person in second place. More than 13,000 points. The Shura Sword King is indeed worthy of the title of Sword King. This is simply crushing the entire field. Everyone also noticed the movement on the hunting list. Looking at the sudden increase in numbers, they were all dumbfounded. More than 13,000 points. In other words, even if Tianyang spent the remaining 2 months in seclusion, he would still be in the top 20, or even the top 10. This kind of terrifying number was simply too shocking. Tianyang left? By the time everyone recovered from their shock, they realized that the sun in the sky had already disappeared without them noticing. Looking around, there was no sign of anyone. Sitting in the heavenly Yuan Tower, Tianyang looked at the bloody wound on his hand and his expression darkened. When he had crushed Yi Qingyu just now, he had used his spiritual energy. Although he had only used a little of it, it had taken a huge toll on him. If he wanted to use it without restraint, it would be impossible for him to do so unless he reached the Spirit King realm. Fortunately, I have mastered the Nirvana secret technique. Even if it's only the first part, it's enough to heal the injury. Tianyang chuckled. A black gold flame rose and covered the bloody wound. In just a few seconds, it had recovered to its original state. Next, it's time to go to the land of inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. I wonder what kind of power this mini sword has as a token of the Great Void Emperor. Tianyang muttered to himself as he looked at the mini sword that was getting brighter and brighter. At this moment, Bai Luoluo was playing with the mini sword. Tianyang wasn't afraid of hurting Luoluo. The rune power that Luoluo had burst out during the fierce battle with the spirit of demonic qi was extremely strong. It was just a mini sword that couldn't accept the infusion of true yuan. It was impossible for it to hurt Bai Luoluo. It'll take a few more days to reach the center of the Great Void Secret Realm. I'll cultivate quietly for the next few days. Glancing at the location and destination, Tianyang muttered to himself and entered a state of cultivation. The Black Tortoise Divine General's signature move, the Black Tortoise Divine Shield. The corner of Ling Yuhan's mouth twitched as she looked at the mysterious shield in her hand. She used a sword. Why did she need a shield, however? From the Black Tortoise Divine General's message, Ling Yuhan knew the location of the Great Void Emperor. She immediately circulated her true yuan and soared into the air, flying over. When Master sees the Black Tortoise Divine Shield in my hand, he'll definitely be shocked, hee. Ling Yuhan chuckled as she put away the Black Tortoise Divine Shield. Although the shield was condensed from true yuan, its true defensive power was even greater than a mid-grade spiritual weapon. After all, it was a low-grade heaven-class martial technique. As Ling Yuhan's strength grew, the Black Tortoise Divine Shield's power would only grow stronger. Moreover, Ling Yuhan smiled as she touched the cold sky sword that had been infused with the Black Tortoise's divine power. Her gains were not limited to this. To hell with the Azure Dragon Divine General. I should have gone to the Zhukei Shogun to fight with the Azura Sword King. Jun Aoyang walked out of the Azure Dragon Divine General's cave with a face full of resentment. In his hand was a slender wooden sword. The wooden sword looked simple and unadorned, but in reality, it was full of mysteries. If true yuan was infused into the sword's power would be comparable to a mid-grade spiritual weapon. This was the strongest treasure in the Azure Dragon Divine General's cave, the mid-grade spiritual weapon, the Azure Dragon Sword. Unfortunately, I'm a spear wielder. Jun Aoyang faced the sky and let out a long roar. The sound waves rolled and shook the entire mountain range. Countless birds were frightened and flew out of the forest. Then, Jun Aoyang put away the Azure Dragon Sword with a face full of resentment and flew up. Forget it, the Four Divine Generals' cave is just a doorstep. The real thing is the Great Void Emperor's inheritance. The Azura Sword King Tianyang, the Black Tortoise Divine General, and the White Tiger Sovereign Yuan Kai. Interesting, Jun Aoyang chuckled and sped towards the center of the Great Void Hidden Domain. Tianyang didn't know that it wasn't that Yuan Kai didn't enter the Four Divine Generals' cave. On the contrary, Yuan Kai was the inheritor of the White Tiger Divine General's cave in the west. It was just that Yuan Kai had killed countless people in the White Tiger Divine General's cave and obtained a lot of points, which allowed him to surpass Jun Aoyang and Yi Qingyu. At this time, in the west, a man with short white hair walked out slowly. He was covered in a bloody aura, but his body was still covered in white. The White Tiger Divine General's White Tiger Fist technique? Not bad, it suits me very well. The white-haired youth looked at his fist and chuckled as he felt the murderous aura coming from it. Chapter 521. At the center of the Great Void's secret realm. It was a desolate plain. It was also the place with the most ferocious beasts and the place where countless contestants fought. Logically speaking, this plain was not suitable for the ferocious beasts to hunt for food. It was simply too open. It was not as habitable as the forests and mountains. However, for some reason, there were many ferocious beasts here. It seems that this is because of the location of the Great Void Emperor's inheritance. Tianyang chuckled and walked out of the Heavenly Yuan Tower. There was only a short distance left, so he did not need to use the Heavenly Yuan Tower. With his extreme speed, his speed was more than twice that of the Heavenly Yuan Tower. Apart from being a means of transportation for long distances, the Heavenly Yuan Tower was also becoming less and less useful to Tianyang. However, Tianyang did not mind. Compared to a means of transportation, Tianyang valued the Heavenly Yuan Tower more for its powerful combat ability. As a mobile fortress in the sky, the Heavenly Yuan Tower was much more effective than a simple shuttle or mount. However, this miniature sword is hot to the touch now, Tianyang chuckled as he held the miniature sword in his hand. The closer he got to the location of the Great Void Emperor's inheritance, the more intense the light emitted by the miniature sword became. Now, he was only a few dozen miles away from the location of the Great Void Emperor's inheritance. Tianyang could cover such a distance in an instant if he unleashed his full speed. Therefore, it was not strange for the miniature sword to have such a huge reaction. Zhuge Shogun said that this is the token of the Great Void Emperor, but I still don't know what it is used for. Tianyang muttered to himself. Although he was one step ahead of the people from the Great Void auction, he had obtained the small sword and obtained the route to the Great Void Emperor's land of inheritance. However, he was no different from the inheritors of the other three Divine Generals' cave abodes. The only difference was that he was at the front. Therefore, Tianyang suspected that the miniature sword's use was not limited to this. However, we can only discover it when we obtain the inheritance of the Taishu Emperor. For now, let's speed up. Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, he used the Void Step secret skill and his speed increased to an extreme. He turned into a ray of light in the sky and shot toward the center of the Great Void secret land. Meanwhile, in the east, west, and north directions of the Great Void mystical ground, three other geniuses charged toward the center without hesitation. The three of them might have different speeds, but because of their starting points, They were almost the same distance from the emperor of the Taishu's inheritance. Including Tianyang, the four of them were equal. Not long after, Tianyang arrived at the center of the vast plains. Stepping on the hard sand, Yi Chen looked around and released his half-step sea of soul realm qi, which easily drove away some of the beasts. As for some blind beasts that came to seek death, Tianyang satisfied them. In just 10 minutes, he had earned a few thousand points. His position at the top of the hunting list also became more stable. He's here. At this moment, Tianyang narrowed his eyes and looked toward the north. An extremely cold qi was getting closer and closer. When it sensed Tianyang, the qi suddenly accelerated. Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled knowingly. Boom! Ling Yuhan's body crashed into Tianyang's chest. Tianyang did not move at all and easily caught Ling Yuhan. The two of them hugged for about half a minute and then separated. Tianyang chuckled. I didn't expect the inheritor of the Black Tortoise Divine General to be you. I didn't expect the inheritor of the Zhukei Shogun to be you, Master. Ling Yuhan grinned. The two of them did not have a strong foundation in the central region and could only rely on each other. Therefore, the speed at which they received news was slower than others. Only now did Tianyang know about Ling Yuhan's encounter in the Great Void Secret Realm. Peak of the third heaven of the Dao Fire Realm? Not bad, your cultivation speed is almost catching up with mine. Tianyang smiled with satisfaction and rubbed Ling Yuhan's head. Ling Yuhan was only 16 years old, 2 or 3 months younger than him. However, she had already reached the peak of the third heaven of the Dao Fire Realm. He had to admit that her talent was terrifying. However, when he thought of Ling Yuhan's unique physique, the nine-nether saint body, and the divine beast bloodline of the nine-tailed lunar fox, Tianyang felt relieved. If she could not reach such a level even with 2 unique physiques, Tianyang would find a piece of tofu and kill himself. Master is also at the half-sea spirit realm. This time, he will definitely be invincible in the Great Void Secret Realm. Ling Yuhan was pleasantly surprised. Tianyang would not hide anything from Ling Yuhan. His soul power automatically spread out, and Ling Yuhan also knew Tianyang's aura. Seeing Tianyang's improvement in strength, Ling Yuhan was also very happy. After all, Tianyang's strength was her master's strength. Not necessarily. For example, the one who flew over like a fireball is at the first heaven of the sea spirit realm. Tianyang chuckled and took a few steps back. The next moment, in the eastern sky, a terrifying flame suddenly burst out and rushed over with unparalleled speed. The next moment, it fell heavily to the ground. Boom! Sand flew and dust filled the sky. Tianyang, who was already prepared, looked calm. However, Ling Yuhan was choked and coughed a few times. What's wrong with this person? This posture, with a wave of his hand, the smoke and dust dispersed, and the figure in the flame was also exposed. Wild goose descending flat sand style. Cough cough, my mistake, my mistake. This thing is indeed easy to get out of hand when accelerated to a certain extent. Fortunately, I didn't fall flat on my face this time. That person got up, patted the dust off his body, and muttered. Then, that person's eyes focused as he felt the gazes from both sides. His whole face immediately turned cold. His sharp eyes swept over Tianyang and Ling Yuhan. Then, he suddenly raised his head and pointed at the sun in the sky. Tianyang and Ling Yuhan's faces also became slightly serious. Could it be that, as soon as they arrived, this person was going to attack? With the first heaven of the sea spirit realm strength and the identity of the Azure Dragon Divine General's successor, this person was definitely not easy to deal with. Well, the weather is really good today. You didn't see anything just now, right? That person laughed awkwardly and said. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan almost fainted. Tianyang's mouth also twitched. He had seen people change the topic, but he had never seen someone change the topic so abruptly. Yes, I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, Tianyang muttered, then returned to his original appearance. His eyes became slightly serious. He had already guessed the identity of the person in front of him. Flame Monarch King Jun Aoyang? Hearing this, Jun Aoyang was stunned. Then, he swept a glance over Tianyang and stretched out his hand. Chapter 522. Nice to meet you. Tianyang smiled and shook hands with Jun Aoyang. The true essence in his body circulated at the same time, and their gazes sharpened. As the former first and second place on the hunting list, the two had been friends for a long time, even though they had never met before. Now that they had met, it was only natural that sparks would fly. The true dragon's power circulated in Tianyang's body and acted on Jun Aoyang's hand without leaving a trace. A flame was slowly burning in Jun Aoyang's body. However, compared to Tianyang's nonchalance, Jun Aoyang's expression was much more obvious. One of his veins was almost popping out, and his face was flushed. Other than the lack of true essence, even a 3-year-old child would be able to see his current state. The simple handshake only lasted for a minute before it was retracted. Tianyang naturally retracted his hand without any injuries, but there were a few more traces of flames on Jun Aoyang's hand. He had burned them himself. Jun Aoyang had never expected Tianyang's physical body to be so strong. His skin was as tough as steel. Just as his flames were about to enter, they were repelled, and in the next moment, that terrifying physical strength restrained his flames, causing them to rub against his hands. Moreover, Tianyang's expression was still smiling, and his arms were relaxed. However, he was still able to restrain Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang even had the misconception that the person in front of him was not the Azura Sword King, but the madman from the Sun Moon sect who was famous for his physical strength. I've long heard that the Azura Sword King's physical strength is incomparably strong. Today I see that it's true. Jun Aoyang forced a smile as he spoke. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. The Flame Monarch's power of flames is also abnormally strong. Since Jun Aoyang was being so courteous, Heavenly Sun didn't want to be too arrogant. His arrogance was only directed at his enemies. The current Jun Aoyang was neither an enemy nor a friend, so it was best not to become enemies with him so easily. However, Jun Aoyang did not seem to like it. After all, he was the first to attack. Moreover, he was using the power of fire that he was most proficient in. In the end, Tianyang made his move later than Jun Aoyang. He used his terrifying physical strength to crush Jun Aoyang's flames. He even gave Jun Aoyang a taste of his own medicine, leaving a few marks on his palm. His skills were much better than Jun Aoyang's. You flatter me. Brother Tianyang's physical strength is still stronger. How could this be? How could this be? The Flame Monarch King's power of flames is very strong as well. I was nearly unable to block it. I should be the one who can't block it. I'm ashamed of my inferiority to your physical strength. The two of them had a friendly and pleasant conversation and reached a consensus. On the other hand, Ling Yuhan was speechless as she watched the two of them flatter each other. After bragging for a few minutes, the two of them finally realized that this round of business boasting was still the same few sentences, so they stopped before it became awkward. At this moment, the fourth person, the White Tiger Sovereign, Yuan Kai, finally arrived. Monstrous killing intent covered the entire western sky. The three of them froze, and in the next moment, a figure appeared in the sky. As soon as the man appeared, his murderous aura reached its peak. Desolate, cold, and bloody killing intent that seemed like it could drip blood. Ling Yuhan and Jun Aoyang's faces instantly turned serious. In the western region of the Great Void Secret Realm, the inheritor of the White Tiger Divine General's cave, Yuan Kai. Looks like I'm late. Yuan Kai slowly landed on the ground, his short white hair fluttering in the wind. There was a trace of arrogance on his face as he scanned the people in front of him. The moment he said this, the killing intent on Yuan Kai's body soared to its peak. The surrounding temperature instantly dropped, and Jun Aoyang's face darkened. He could see that Yuan Kai was the same as him, at the first level of the Sea of Soul realm. In other words, without considering Tianyang, Yuan Kai was his strongest opponent in the fight for Emperor Taishu's inheritance. You've only just arrived, yet you're already releasing such killing intent. You don't seem to be giving us any face? Zhu Naoyang said coldly. He could still maintain his composure when facing Tianyang. After all, Tianyang was very polite to him. However, Yuan Kai was clearly trying to intimidate them. The only way to deal with this kind of person was to use strength to subdue him. Hearing this, Yuan Kai faintly smiled. Killing intent? Sorry, I couldn't control it. The martial skill I obtained in the White Tiger Divine General's cave is a bit powerful. It's not that easy to take back the killing intent that you've cultivated. Yuan Kai smiled, but the arrogance in his eyes didn't disappear in the slightest. Seeing this, Zhu Naoyang's face turned slightly cold. A flame slowly spiraled between his fingers, and the pressure of a first-level Sea of Soul realm was slowly released. Killing intent? If you want him to release it, then release it. Yawn. Tianyang looked at the two and yawned indifferently. However, after this yawn, the so-called murderous aura released by Yuan Kai instantly disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Seeing this, Yuan Kai's face changed abruptly, and he looked at Tianyang in disbelief. This person didn't do anything, and he was able to break his killing intent? This person clearly didn't even use a trace of true yuan. It was just an ordinary yawn, and it actually made his killing intent retreat? How was this possible? On the side, Zhu Naoyang's face was also filled with shock. In the previous exchange, Zhu Naoyang clearly understood that Tianyang's strength wasn't ordinary. However, a yawn was enough to extinguish Yuan Kai's monstrous murderous aura. Wasn't this a little too terrifying? In an instant, Zhu Naoyang raised Tianyang's status to the same as Yuan Kai's, or even higher. What the two didn't know was that during this yawn, Tianyang wasn't doing nothing. He slightly released a bit of his slaughter domain. It was only an inch away from his body, and the three didn't even notice it. However, killing intent was the most sensitive to things of the same origin. The slaughter domain could be said to be the ancestor of killing intent. When killing intent encountered the slaughter domain, it naturally retreated like a mouse seeing a cat. If Tianyang hadn't retracted it in time, it would have been affected by his own killing intent. Yuan Kai might have directly knelt down. Speaking of which, Divine General Azure Dragon told me that when the four of you gather together, the inheritance of Emperor Taishu will open. Why hasn't it opened yet? Zhu Naoyang asked curiously. Hearing this, Tianyang opened his eyes slightly and looked ahead. Right away. Chapter 523. Boundless divine light soared into the sky, illuminating thousands of miles in all directions. Standing under the Shenguang, other than Tianyang, the expressions of the other three changed. Yuan Kai and Zhu Naoyang could not hide the excitement on their faces. After all, this was the inheritance of a great emperor from the primordial age. Compared to the famous Sky Pole Sword Emperor from 10,000 years ago, he was not much weaker. It's opened, Zhu Naoyang mumbled. At this moment, under the Shenguang, a majestic palace slowly appeared. The area it occupied was at least 100 square kilometers. Its height was so high that it seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. It was unbelievably majestic. From the front, an extremely terrifying pressure was released, oppressing everyone present, making it hard for them to breathe. Except for Tianyang. This palace, TSK, is even better than mine. Tianyang pursed his lips and mumbled to himself. This majestic palace was indeed much better than his previous life, whether it was the area or the decorations. After all, Tianyang was alone in his previous life. Who would arrange this for him? Occasionally there would be people under Zhou Xing. But Emperor Taishu was different. He had established the sacred land of martial arts and had the 4 great generals and thousands of disciples. Building a majestic palace was not a problem at all. Taishu Divine Palace. At this moment, Everyone saw the domineering words above the palace gate. These words were obviously ancient words that had been abandoned for many years. However, the four of them saw it clearly. No matter how difficult it was to decipher the words, they immediately understood the meaning behind them. Taishu Divine Palace, the palace where Emperor Taishu lived. At the same time, it was where Emperor Taishu left his inheritance. Charge! Yuan Kai was the first to lose his patience. A red light flashed in his eyes as he charged in. The door opened, and Yuan Kai charged in without any resistance. Jun Aoyang licked his lips when he saw this. He burst into a terrifying speed and charged in again. Tianyang and Ling Yuhan, on the other hand, were taking their time. Master, compared to your palace, it's much stronger. Your master is poor. Before Ling Yuhan could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Tianyang. However, there wasn't the slightest bit of desire in Tianyang's eyes. Instead, there was a cold glint in his eyes. This Taishu Divine Palace seems to be more than just the Taishu Divine Palace. Tianyang thought about how the Great Void Secret Realm opened periodically and how those who entered could not stay for long. However, it had such a vast area. Tianyang narrowed his eyes. When creating a small world, even if it was based on the Tianshao Great World, it was more stable the smaller it was. And the Great Void Secret Realm, the smaller small, which meant that it should be small its own it. However, after 100,000 years, the Great Void Mystic Realm was still the same size. This made Tianyang wonder. But, he said, let's go. The divine palace, This is the Taishu Divine Palace? Yuan Kai was the first to rush in. He looked at his surroundings and the redness in his eyes dimmed a little. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is even stronger than that of the martial arts' sacred grounds. No wonder it's an emperor. Moreover, that's the spiritual weapon hall. Yuan Kai turned around and immediately saw the majestic hall standing beside him. He immediately rushed over. I'm lacking a spiritual weapon boxing glove. This Taishu Emperor's spiritual weapon hall really suits me. Yuan Kai laughed heartily. Then, he rushed in. Then, Jun Aoyang also appeared in this space. Spiritual weapon hall? Elixir hall? Martial skills hall? This Taishu Divine Palace is filled with treasures. Jun Aoyang's eyes lit up as he looked at the palaces around him. He then rushed in the direction of the martial skills hall. I'm lacking a spear martial skill. After another 3 minutes, Tianyang and Yuan Kai arrived at this place. Tianyang frowned as he looked at his surroundings. He frowned as if he was thinking about something. That's strange. Master, why isn't there anything here? There are a lot of things outside. At this moment, Ling Yuhan suddenly said. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and he looked around. He had clearly seen many large halls. However, when Tianyang turned around, he saw the 4 tails behind Ling Yuhan. The 9-tailed fox was the ancestor of illusions, not to mention the 9-tailed heavenly moon fox. Ling Yuhan used her 9-tailed heavenly moon fox martial soul, so she could see through the illusions. That's right. The palaces that made Yuan Kai crazy and Jun Aoyang excited were all illusions. What's fake is real, what's real is fake, what's fake is real, what's fake is real. Emperor Taishu's word, fake, is not the same as Emperor Taishu's. Emperor Taishu changed his name to Emperor Illusionary. That's not bad. Tianyang chuckled. Ling Yuhan was stunned when she heard that. At this moment, the space in front of her suddenly rippled like water. In the next moment, an old man walked out. He wore ancient clothes and had a long beard that reached his shoulders. His white hair didn't look dry at all. It was as if this person was still alive in this world. Without a doubt, this person was the emperor of the primordial era from 100,000 years ago, Emperor Taishu. I'm sorry. I'm too used to calling you by this name. I'm too lazy to change it. However, this little girl has the nine-tailed fox bloodline. It's not difficult for her to see through my illusions. But you. I can't see through you. Emperor Taishu looked at Tianyang in shock. He had used his illusions to create palaces of treasures to test the temperament of the inheritors of the four divine generals. However, he had expected that the best result would be to see through the peculiarities of this place and stay where he was. But in the end, he discovered that this was an illusion? What the hell? If illusions were so easy to see through, he wouldn't need to continue being the emperor of Taishu. It's normal that you can't see through it. Tianyang smiled faintly. Emperor Taishu was weaker than him when he was alive, let alone after he died. Moreover, Tianyang had encountered many opportunities in this life. His soul power was much stronger than in his previous life. Emperor Taishu, who was already dead, naturally couldn't see through it. Interesting. I really can't see through it. Emperor Taishu raised an eyebrow. He gathered his true yuan and looked at Tianyang again. However, all he saw was a cloud of fog. The real Tianyang was standing here, but he couldn't see him. Forget it. There are too many people with secrets in this world. I'm too lazy to look into it. However, Emperor Taishu chuckled and looked at the two people in front of him. You're here for my inheritance, right? Chapter 524. No inheritance? Ling Yuhan was stunned when she heard that. Then, she said angrily, Are you playing with us? However, Tianyang chuckled when he heard that. I think the inheritance you're talking about is different from the inheritance we're talking about. As expected of an expert in illusions, your ability to manipulate people's hearts is not bad. The four divine generals naturally wouldn't lie. However, it should be noted that the language of 10,000 years ago and 10,000 years later were basically similar because of the great destruction of civilization. The difference from 10,000 years ago to the present was huge. Who knew what the inheritance that Emperor Taishu was talking about was? Emperor Taishu was taken aback. He looked at Tianyang, speechless. I think I might as well not test you. I'll just give you the inheritance. Your reaction speed is even faster than mine back then, the Great Void Emperor said. Tianyang smiled faintly, concealing his achievements and fame. However, not only did you see through my illusions in the first round, you even forced me out. I can say that you've passed perfectly. However, we still have to continue with the second round, Emperor Taishu said. Then, a huge tower appeared in Emperor Taishu's hand. This tower is called the Heart Refining Tower. If you want to inherit my inheritance, your temperament must be extremely strong. If you can't pass the Heart Refining Tower, you won't be able to use all of my powers even if I give you all of them. Not to mention carrying out an even bigger mission. I'd rather wait another 100,000 years than hand over my mantle to a person who failed. The Taishu Emperor grew solemn. His aged face radiated an aura of authority without being angry. Ling Yuhan's face froze when she saw that. The person in front of her was a great emperor after all. However, Tianyang's expression did not change at all. He said calmly, of course. If it were me, I would never give the task of destroying demons to someone with a weak temperament. Under the Great Void Divine Palace, TSK, hearing this, the Taishu Emperor's expression changed slightly. He looked at Tianyang in disbelief. You then, sensing the familiar aura on Tianyang's body, the Emperor of Taishu's expression also calmed down. He said strangely, I didn't think that there would be someone of this level in this era. However, my Heart Refining Tower is not that easy to pass, Emperor Taishu said proudly. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. Bring it on. In the next moment, the pagoda in the Taishu Emperor's hand enlarged countless times and landed on the empty ground in front of him. The Heart Refining Tower was 1,081 floors tall. Only by clearing all 1,081 floors would one be able to enter the third stage. Only then would one have a chance of inheriting the inheritance of Emperor Taishu. The 1081 floor of the Heart Refining Tower is my strongest tower. Even I don't have the confidence to pass it. Brat, you asked for it. The Great Void Emperor gave Tianyang a meaningful look and said. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly and directly walked in with Lingyuan. The Heart Refining Tower refined one's soul. It was a problem for ordinary mortals to pass even one floor. However, even a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator might not be as strong as a mortal if their will was not firm enough. However, if one's will was strong, regardless of cultivation, even a body refinement realm cultivator or a mortal, it was possible to break through the 1000th floor. Tianyang and Lingyuan stepped into the Heart Refining Tower at the same time and were separated at the same time. Save me! Before Tianyang could examine his surroundings, a person covered in blood suddenly rushed into his ear and screamed at Tianyang. Behind that person was a group of sinister black-robed people. Don't even think about it. In front of our heavenly Een mountain, no one would dare to attack. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. This illusion was really realistic. The blood-soaked person's palm was almost touching his leg, and he could feel the warmth from it. Unfortunately, Tianyang shook his head and flicked his finger. The black-robed person and the blood-soaked person were all reduced to ashes. On the first floor, even if you move out of the heavenly Een mountain, you still can't do anything to me. Then, a silver light flashed and Tianyang arrived at the second floor. Seeing this, Emperor Taishu looked on from outside and revealed an extremely shocked expression. On the first floor, I used an illusion technique that would normally be used on the 100th floor. It's enough to make people forget that this is an illusion. This Tianyang, why is he not affected at all? If it's his will, this is too terrifying. Even if he is, it's impossible. Emperor Taishu said in shock. At this moment, Tianyang's expression was calm as he directly arrived at the 4th floor. The 4th level was also an illusion. However, the illusion this time was more realistic than the previous one. It was different from the previous simulated temperature and touch. This time, it was a real thing, although the main body was still an illusion. Unknowingly, Tianyang had already broken through countless illusions and arrived at the 81st floor. The 81st floor was a qualitative change of the Heart Refining Tower. The realism of the illusion and the degree of its influence on people's souls would be greatly strengthened. Even a cultivator with a strong will would be easily affected by the reality and be defeated if they were not careful. False is true is false, and false is true. Tianyang had noticed the 2 lines on the Taishu Emperor Lord's robes when he had been conversing with him. It was obvious that the Taishu Emperor Lord's control over illusions had reached the pinnacle. Yanger, why are you here? The food at home is already heated. Go and eat. At this moment, a gentle laughter came from the side, and the next moment, a steady voice sounded. Yes, you're about to take over the family head position. You can't be frivolous anymore. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and he looked at the 2 people. Then, his heart began to tremble violently. These 2 people were the family head of the Tian family and Tianyang's mother. They were his real parents. Tianyang had lived 2 lives and was almost an orphan. He had never enjoyed the love of a father or a mother. He did not expect Emperor Taishu to take advantage of this and attack him. If he was not careful, he might really fail. What are you waiting for? It's just been heated. It's going to be cold soon. At this moment, the gentlewoman shouted. Hearing this, Tianyang's heart trembled slightly, but he still sighed. Your illusion is really good. Unfortunately, it's fake. It's still fake. It's still unknown whether my parents in this life are still around. Heavenly Sun sighed softly, and the illusory realm vanished like smoke. Chapter 525. Tianyang's temperament had become incomparably resilient ever since his civilization was destroyed. After all, he could even survive being struck to death by lightning. What else was there to be afraid of? Apart from the illusion of Tianyang's parents on the 81st floor, Tianyang broke through all the other illusions without any hindrance. No matter how realistic they were, it was all the same. They were all just illusions. Even if the Taishu Emperor had created an illusion of his wedding ceremony with the Ice Emperor and Ling Yuhan, Tianyang couldn't be bothered with it. To think that he was the Taishu Emperor. This illusion was so lousy. Tianyang's heart was like a sharp blade. All the illusions and inner demons were shattered into pieces before this blade. This kid's temperament is too terrifying. The Taishu Emperor muttered as he stood outside the refining heart tower and looked at Tianyang's expressionless face on the 821st floor. The illusion of this level was the wedding night. It was much more powerful than the wedding ceremony. But what was the result? With a casual strike from Tianyang, the illusory realm vanished like smoke. This won't do. If this goes on, won't my reputation be ruined? The Taishu Emperor's face twitched slightly. He glanced at Ling Yuhan, who had reached the 100th floor, and sighed inwardly. This time, he had truly encountered two monsters. Although the Taishu Emperor Lord could see that Tianyang's body was emitting an aura that belonged to an emperor, he didn't really care. After all, Tianyang's cultivation base was only at the half-step C of Soul Realm. He hadn't even reached the peak. How could he be a great emperor? To the Taishu Emperor, things like rebirth were still too absurd. Damn it, if a pure illusion can't do you, then I can't. You really can break through my 1000-level refining heart tower. 800 layers is enough to crush me when I was in the sea of Soul Realm. I don't believe that this guy's temperament is comparable to mine when I was in the heavenly completion realm. After a moment of hesitation, the Taishu Emperor gritted his teeth and waved his hand. So it was all an illusion. Outside the Great Void Divine Palace, Jun Aoyang and Yuan Kai's faces darkened. As soon as they entered the Great Void Divine Palace, they were affected by the illusory aura that permeated the place. Coupled with the ecstasy they felt after entering the Great Void Divine Palace, they were immediately overwhelmed. From the outside, the Elixir Hall, Spiritual Weapon Hall, and other halls were all at the back of the Great Void Divine Palace. How could they be seen as soon as they entered? This was a test that could be said to be mentally retarded. Yet they had failed it. To think that I'm a genius disciple of the Sun-Moon sect. I can't even see through such an illusion. Compared to Brother Tianyang, I'm practically trash, Jun Aoyang sighed. When he thought about how excited he was when he appeared in the Great Void Divine Palace and how calm Tianyang was, he suddenly felt ashamed. It was said that Tianyang came from a third-rate force, the Stars Swordplay sect. However, Tianyang easily defeated Jun Aoyang, a genius disciple from a first-rate force. Damn it! If it wasn't for Tianyang, how could I have been blinded? Tianyang must have used some tricks. On the other side, Yuan Kai angrily slammed the ground and roared. He was called the White Tiger Sovereign. Although it was just a title, it had fueled his arrogance. But what was the result? He was kicked out without even seeing the face of the test. Moreover, Tianyang, who came from a third-rate force that he looked down on, not only easily destroyed his murderous aura, he even surpassed him in the Great Void Divine Palace. Yuan Kai, who had been blinded by anger, pushed all the blame onto Tianyang without a care for the consequences. Do you want to counterattack? Do you want to rise? Do you want to start all over again? At this moment, an old voice slowly sounded. A soul avatar of the Emperor of Taishu appeared in front of the two. It was just a soul avatar of a remnant soul, but a majestic aura enveloped the entire world. It was as if he was the ruler of this world. This was the master of the Great Void Secret Realm, the Heavenly Ascension Realm Great Emperor, the Emperor of Taishu. You are Jun Aoyang's expression changed drastically. He looked at the Emperor of Taishu in shock. Yuan Kai, who was beside him, suddenly raised his head. You can make me start all over again? Of course. The Emperor of Taishu smiled. However, only after you enter a test and defeat your opponent can you start all over again. If you can't defeat your opponent, then you will be completely defeated. The Emperor of Taishu was naturally talking about Tianyang. Although Tianyang had displayed a trace of the great emperor's aura, the Emperor of Taishu was still not convinced. Moreover, the thing suppressed under the Great Void Palace was not so easily defeated. If Tianyang's strength was not enough, then the Great Void Secret Realm would only be destroyed if Tianyang was handed over to him. How could the Emperor of Taishu, who had died 100,000 years ago, allow this to happen? Therefore, he directly went to find these two first-level Sea of Soul Realm cultivators. I will definitely defeat them. Not only that, I will also kill Tianyang. Yuan Kai roared. Hearing this, the Emperor of Taishu's eyes narrowed slightly, and his expression turned slightly ugly. However, Zhu Naoyang, who was beside him, spoke up. Senior Emperor, I also choose to start all over again. As for the opponent, I will naturally do my best, Zhu Naoyang said. Hearing this, the Emperor of Taishu chuckled. If that's the case, then I will send you in. Remember, you can only come back after defeating your opponent. In the next moment, Zhu Naoyang and Yuan Kai were directly sent to the top few levels of the Refining Heart Tower by the Emperor of Taishu's great mystique. However, after doing this, the Emperor of Taishu frowned. The successor of the White Tiger, this murderous aura of cultivation, forget it. If it doesn't work, then I will just kill Tianyang. Only an opponent with murderous intent can force Tianyang to use his strongest strength. As for Zhu Naoyang, this seedling is not bad, the Emperor of Taishu muttered. Then, this soul doppelganger turned into the purest soul power and returned to the original soul remnant in the Great Void Palace. At this moment, Tianyang had successfully broken through the 1073rd level and arrived at the 1074th level. Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he looked at the center of the 1074th level. It was different from before. This time, he actually felt a trace of a living person's aura? There was a living person in the Refining Heart Tower? Tianyang? Zhu Naoyang, who had just been sent here and did not know anything, exclaimed when he saw Tianyang. Chapter 526. Opponent. Tianyang paused for a moment, then thought of a certain emperor. Emperor Taishu asked you to come? Zhu Naoyang was also stunned. He was surprised that Tianyang dared to call out Emperor Taishu's name in the Taishu temple. That's right. This guy is still trying to disgust me, although it's understandable. Tianyang pursed his lips. Tianyang was not displeased with Great Emperor Taishu. Great Emperor Taishu only knew his temperament and did not know his strength. Naturally, he would not be at ease leaving Great Void Divine Palace to Tianyang. After all, the thing under the Taishu temple was too scary. Even with Emperor Taishu's remnant soul guarding it, it was still a bit difficult. He urgently needed an inheritor to guard it or kill it. However, Emperor Taishu's soul was almost destroyed, and only a remnant soul was left. If the inheritor didn't have the strength, wouldn't he die immediately? This wasn't what Emperor Taishu wanted to see, and neither was it what Tianyang wanted to see. This was because, according to Tianyang's guess, under the Great Void Divine Palace, the Great Void Secret Realm's power was used to suppress an extraterrestrial demon, a Demon King-level existence. The Demon King was not the Demon King that Yi Qingyu had bragged about, but an extraterrestrial demon who had reached the Reaching Heaven realm and was close to the Martial Venerable realm. Even Tianyang would have a hard time dealing with it. Forget it, I don't want to find trouble with him. Opponent, that means I want to fight with you, right? Tianyang rubbed his fists indifferently, and the true yuan in his body slowly circulated. Divine Desolate Sky Spirit Art activate. The true yuan pressure of a half-step Sea of Soul realm exploded instantly. Zhu Naoyang nodded, and his face turned serious. Although he had a good relationship with Tianyang, they had to fight for Emperor Taishu's inheritance. That's right. Please. Jun Aoyang nodded heavily, and in the next moment, the true yuan of a first-level sea of Soul Realm exploded. A flame flashed, and Jun Aoyang's body disappeared from the spot. Cremation! Jun Aoyang roared, and a long spear appeared in his hand. It shone with a dazzling light, and he stabbed it toward Tianyang. Earth Tier Superior Grade Martial Skill? Unfortunately, it's still not enough to deal with me. Tianyang's expression changed slightly and he chuckled lightly. On the True Dragon Core, the 108 True Dragon marks released rays of resplendent light. The Sea of Soul Realm Dragon Force left behind by Long Haotian was almost completely used up. In the next moment, Tianyang took a step forward. Myriad Dragon Roars. Dragon King Divine Fist. Boom! It was as if countless true dragons were clashing with the flames. The dragons roared and the flames flickered. The entire world was trembling slightly. And this was because they were in the Heart Refining Tower. If they were in the outside world, the space would have been shattered. The Azura Sword King versus the Flame Monarch. My cremation is more than enough to deal with a second-level Sea of Soul Realm expert. Who would have thought that Tianyang would be able to block it so easily? Jun Aoyang's expression changed drastically. Looking at the Dragon King Divine Fist that was breaking through his attacks, his heart sank. He suddenly raised the long spear in his hand. Earth Tier Superior Grade Martial Skill, Burying Flames. Jun Aoyang roared, and streams of Shun Guang exploded, blasting toward Tianyang. Carrying an incomparably majestic flame, Jun Aoyang's spear contained the profound of fire. It had almost reached the limit of a first-level Sea of Soul Realm expert. Not bad, but unfortunately you're still weak. Tianyang smiled faintly. True Dragon Force gathered, and he punched out again. Dragon King Divine Fist. Myriad dragons slaughtering gods. Roar. The Dragon King's roar reverberated through the clouds. Myriad dragons soared into the sky, violently attacking Jun Aoyang's spear. On the long spear, streams of flames burned crazily, trying to resist Tianyang's myriad dragons slaughtering gods. Boom, 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 boom. In a few short breaths, the two sides had already clashed countless times. The myriad dragons slaughtering gods wasn't just for show. The number of dragons condensed from the boundless dragon force was many times more than 10,000. So strong. As expected of the number one on the hunting list, Azura Sword King. Jun Aoyang was forced to retreat step by step. The long spear in his hand kept stabbing out, but he still couldn't stabilize his body. There was even a trace of a crack on the long spear. It had to be known that this was a peak mid-grade spirit artifact. If it was used by a spirit king, it wouldn't be degrading at all. However, under Tianyang's fist, a trace of a crack had appeared. But I, Jun Aoyang, am not so easily defeated. Seeing that he was about to be blasted out of the refining heart tower, Jun Aoyang's eyes widened. He roared, and a stream of dark flames appeared on his body. Annihilation flames. Jun Aoyang roared, and in the next moment, the dark flames with the terrifying power of annihilation soared into the sky, directly destroying Tianyang's myriad dragons, slaughtering gods. Fist techniques weren't Tianyang's forte, but Tianyang could use 2 punches to force the flame monarch Jun Aoyang into such a state. It was obvious how strong Tianyang's punches were. Annihilation flames that are even stronger than the rising sky flames? As expected of the central region. Something that has never been heard of in other places has already appeared in one mystic realm. Tianyang chuckled. In the Great Void Mystic Realm, there were already 3 people who could control spiritual fires. Tianyang was one, Han Tianxiong was another, and now Jun Aoyang was another. However, Tianyang, who was the strongest, had the weakest spiritual fire. Although the Annihilation spiritual fire was of great help to Tianyang, it was only a level 3 spiritual fire. As Tianyang's strength increased, the annihilation spiritual fire became less useful to him. In the end, other than alchemy, Tianyang almost didn't need it anymore. However, with the addition of the rising sky flames, the annihilation spiritual fire had risen again. Since you've already used the spiritual fire, I'll be embarrassed if I don't use it, Tianyang chuckled, and in the next moment, a black and gold flame appeared in his hand. Jun Aoyang's expression changed drastically when he saw this. He could feel that the black and gold flame in Tianyang's hand was comparable to his annihilation flames. I've never seen this flame before. Could it be that you were the first to discover it? Jun Aoyang said in a low voice. There were countless mystical items and treasures in Tianshao Great World. The spiritual fire was one of the most mystical items in Tianshao Great World. Even though Tianshao continent had a long history, no one dared to say that they had discovered all the spiritual fires. However, there were very few that had not been discovered. First to discover it? You can say that. Tianyang chuckled. His annihilation heavenly flames were created by himself, so it wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was the first to discover it. Hearing this, Jun Aoyang's eyes revealed a trace of envy, but he immediately returned to his normal state. However, I won't lose to you. Let's see whose fire is stronger. Chapter 527. Half-Step Heaven Tier Martial Skill, Fire Dance of the Mysterious Sky. Jun Aoyang roared, and the true yuan of the Sea of Soul realm in his body boiled. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying aura was released from his body. The annihilation flames condensed on his long spear as Jun Aoyang's long spear danced rapidly, condensing an extremely tyrannical attack. Tianyang's expression froze slightly as he looked at the spear in Jun Aoyang's hand. Waves of dangerous aura were emitted from it. Even Yi Qingyu of the Heavenly Demon Cult had a half-step heaven-tier martial skill to use. How could Jun Aoyang, who came from a first-rate force, not have one? However, Jun Aoyang had probably used all of his strength in this move. This move is my strongest move. I originally planned to use it when fighting for Emperor Taishu's inheritance, but it's not bad to use it on you now. Jun Aoyang laughed loudly. In the next moment, the true yuan in his body surged out rapidly, transforming into annihilation flames one after another. A pitch-black sun appeared in the sky. The sun-moon wheel illuminated all things. The sun outside was formed by two pure black rings of annihilation flames, and in the middle, a crescent moon was extremely demonic, emitting powerful aura. Earth-tier martial skills transcended the mysteries, and could use the power of heaven and earth. Heaven-tier martial skills could control heaven and earth. Although a half-step heaven-tier martial skill was far from a true heaven-tier martial skill, it could still use some of the power of heaven and earth for one's own use. This half-step heaven-tier martial skill, Fire Dance of the Mysterious Sky, was without a doubt the convergence of the power of heaven and earth. The Sun-Moon Wheel might even be the Sun-Moon Sect's signature martial skill. Compared to Yi Qingyu's Sky Demon Seal, it was countless times more powerful. Even if your annihilation flames are extremely powerful, in front of my Sun-Moon Sect's martial skill, it can only be destroyed. Jun Aoyang laughed proudly. In the next moment, the spear in his hand instantly condensed the power of annihilation flames and ruthlessly shot towards Tianyang. This power is indeed not bad. Seeing this, Tianyang faintly smiled. Just as he was about to strike back with his sword, he saw a ball of flames suddenly ignite on Jun Aoyang's body. What? Jun Aoyang's expression changed greatly. In the next moment, his entire body was burned to ashes by this ball of flame. Tianyang was also shocked. He could sense that Jun Aoyang's life force had completely disappeared. What was going on? Not bad. You have already displayed your temperament and combat prowess. I will definitely not be ashamed to give you my inheritance. At this moment, the figure of the Great Void Emperor slowly appeared. He smiled at Tianyang and said, I'll leave the Demon King under the Great Void Palace to you. The Great Void Emperor laughed. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes flashed with joy, and he was about to step forward. Suddenly, his movements froze, and a trace of clarity slowly appeared. Hee. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes suddenly flashed with a bright light. His originally shocked expression instantly returned to normal. Indeed, those who play with illusions have dirty hearts. This sudden attack almost caused me to fall for it. Tianyang smiled faintly. Hearing this, the Great Void Emperor's expression did not change. What are you talking about? This is my inheritance, and it contains my fist technique and cultivation experience. F*CKU. Tianyang pursed his lips. Then, he directly punched out and sent the Great Void Emperor's figure flying. Happiness, anger, sorrow, joy, love, hate, and desire. I didn't expect your cultivation of illusions to reach the level of 7 emotions and 6 desires. If I accepted the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor under the influence of happiness, I might have been kicked out by now. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the Great Void Emperor's expression changed slightly. He stood up, but he was not angry at all. Not bad. Your reaction speed is even better than mine. You've passed this stage. However, your battle with Jun Aoyang still has to continue, the Great Void Emperor laughed. In the next moment, the illusions around them collapsed. At this moment, Jun Aoyang's fire dance of the heavens had finished condensing. I will prove that I am the true King of Flames. Jun Aoyang roared. The spear in his hand condensed the wheel of sun and moon, and he charged towards Tianyang. Tianyang was suddenly attacked, but he did not panic. He smiled faintly and slashed out with the Styx River sword in his hand. The heavenly fire of annihilation condensed the power of the sun and turned into a destructive sword intent. A destructive sword light that tore through space suddenly slashed out. Sky Sword Art, second sword, shatter the heavens! Tianyang roared. In the next moment, a pitch-black sword light burst out and collided with the fire dance of the heavens. The power of the sun. You can condense the power of the sun. What kind of flame is this? Looking at the power of the sun in the sword, Jun Aoyang's expression changed drastically. He roared in disbelief. The power of the sun had always been exclusive to the heavenly fire of annihilation. In the end, Tianyang's unknown heavenly fire of annihilation also had the power of the sun? What the hell was going on? There are all kinds of strange things in this world. Who dares to say that they know all the spiritual flames in this world? Tianyang smiled faintly. In the next moment, the destructive sword intent was completely released. Boom, boom, boom. Countless flames collided violently. Even the space in the heart refining tower trembled. The collision between the wheel of sun and moon and the destructive sword light was even more shocking. In a battle between mortals, it was already the limit to send sand and stones flying. However, with just one move, the entire space in the heart-refining tower was disturbed. As expected of the King of Swords. Even without Shura you are so strong. Jun Aoyang praised. Then, he laughed loudly. However, my fire dance of the heavens is far more powerful than this. Fire dance of the heavens, sun and moon heavenly wheel. Jun Aoyang roared. His first level C of Soul Realm Jin Yuan burned. The wheel of sun and moon that was fighting with the destructive sword light instantly sublimated. The annihilation flame on it had become even stronger. Moreover, countless profound runes had appeared outside of the sun and moon patterns. Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. If the wheel of sun and moon was said to have just stepped into the threshold of a half-step heaven rank martial skill, then it would be said that the wheel of sun and moon just now had just stepped into the threshold of a half-step heaven rank martial skill. The current sun and moon heavenly wheel could be considered a first-rate martial skill among half-step heaven rank martial skills. The inheritance of Emperor Taishu belongs to me, Jun Aoyang. Jun Aoyang laughed loudly. The sun and moon heavenly wheel burned on the spear in his hand. Stepping on flames, he stabbed out again. With one stab, 100 zhang of space exploded. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Then, he laughed lightly. If this is your strongest move, then you still have no chance of obtaining the inheritance of Emperor Taishu. Sky Extreme Sword Technique, 3rd move, Styx River Sword Technique, 4th move. Chapter 528. Fusing sword arts was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Even when Tianyang used the Nether Death Chi as a bridge between the Styx River sword arts and fused the 3 moves into one, it was a bit of a trick. However, if Tianyang didn't have a terrifying talent in sword arts, he wouldn't have been able to fuse them. Even if it was a trick, one had to have a certain foundation to call it a trick. The fusion of different moves of the same sword art was already so terrifying, not to mention different sword arts. The higher the grade, the harder it was to fuse them. However, Tianyang directly fused a mid-grade heaven-class martial skill with a low-grade heaven-class martial skill. Azura Star Burial. Tianyang roared, and surging killing intent was released from his body. Stepping on the slaughter domain, he almost turned the entire refining heart tower into a purgatory. In Tianyang's hand, a blood-colored galaxy slowly appeared. He aimed at the incoming sun-moon heavenly disk and slashed out. The blood-colored galaxy was resplendent like a rainbow, tearing the sky apart. Jun Aoyang's expression changed greatly. The spear in his hand exploded with the strongest light, and his first level C of Soul Realm Zhen Yuan burned. He roared, "Break for me!" The sun-moon heavenly disk on the spear also bloomed with unparalleled brilliance. The power of the 4th grade spirit fire was fully displayed, and its terrifying power shook the space. Outside, Emperor Taishu was so shocked that his jaw almost fell to the ground when he saw the 2 of them fighting. Even Azure Dragon and Vermilion Bird weren't as strong as them. Even if these 2 were placed 100,000 years ago, they would definitely be geniuses among geniuses. It's a pity that Tianyang doesn't seem to like forming a force. Otherwise, Jun Aoyang would definitely be the next Juke shogun. Emperor Taishu exclaimed. His refining heart tower was a high-grade spirit artifact. Apart from testing him, it could also greatly increase his battle strength. 100,000 years ago, with the help of the refining heart tower, Emperor Taishu used illusory techniques, which weren't strong in frontal combat, to defeat countless enemies and become a peerless emperor. The space inside was naturally very sturdy. However, under the battle between the 2 Tianyang, the space of the 1074th level was about to explode. However, whether or not Tianyang can withstand it is still a question. Half-step heaven-ranked martial skill, damn it! Emperor Taishu's heart sank when he saw Jun Aoyang unleashing his full power. If Tianyang couldn't defeat Jun Aoyang, he would have to wait another 100,000 years. After all, the Great Void Emperor was very satisfied with Tianyang's strength and temperament. However, if he couldn't pass the refining heart tower, Tianyang wouldn't even be qualified to be recognized by the Great Void Divine Palace. At that time, it would be impossible for him to inherit the Great Void Mystic Realm and suppress or even kill the Demon King suppressed below. However, the dramatic scene in front of him left the Taishu Emperor dumbfounded. Burning true essence? It's a pity. Tianyang saw this and shook his head. Jun Aoyang's strength was obvious to all. He was worthy of his background, and even more dazzling than his background. However, in front of his Azura Star Burial, Jun Aoyang could only lose no matter how strong he was. The blood-colored Milky Way slashed out, leaving a brilliant Milky Way sword mark in the space. It was poignant and beautiful. However, it didn't release any aura, as if it was just an ordinary sword mark. It didn't seem to have any killing power. Even Jun Aoyang, who had burned his true essence and used his full strength, couldn't help but show a trace of contempt. After all, such a sword was too inconspicuous. However, The Emperor of Taishu stood up and roared in disbelief when he saw this. How is this possible? Half-step Sea of Soul Realm, even if he's the reincarnation of a great emperor, he can't do this. A martial skill of this level can be combined and controlled to the limit just like that? The Great Void Emperor roared. Ever since he died 100,000 years ago, he had never been so excited. After all, only a great emperor could see through the mystery of Tianyang's sword. Blood-colored Milky Way? The strength of this move was already extremely strong. It was even stronger than an ordinary heaven-class upper martial skill. As a martial emperor, the Great Void Emperor could naturally see through the clues of this move. He was shocked. How could the fusion of two heaven-class sword skills be so strong? But now, this seemingly ordinary sword strike was even more shocking to the Taishu Emperor than it had been before. To be able to do this, could it be that he has already broken through the extreme realm? The Great Void Emperor murmured. At this moment, he no longer had any doubts about Tianyang's identity as a great emperor. Even the legendary Wu Zun might not be able to break through the extreme realm of Sword Wei. However, how could Tianyang, a half-step Sea of Soul Realm, cultivate to such a level? Not to mention a half-step Sea of Soul Realm, even a peak Ascension Realm cultivator might not be able to do this in the history of Tianshao Great World. Now that Tianyang had appeared, the Great Void Emperor's worldview had been turned upside down. You want to break my Sun-Moon heavenly wheel with this sword strike? Tianyang, aren't you a little too arrogant? However, Jun Aoyang, who was in the middle of the situation, was furious. No matter how good his temper was, he couldn't stand such humiliation. Tianyang shrugged. The sword strike had already been executed. It was up to Jun Aoyang whether he wanted to take it or not. In the next moment, Jun Aoyang snorted and charged forward with his spear in hand. Sun-Moon Heavenly Wheel, spear piercing sun and moon. Jun Aoyang roared. The true Yuan in his body boiled. He stabbed out with his spear, stirring up endless wind and clouds. The Crimson Galaxy also collided with this move. Boom! Boom! There was no suspense. It was similar to what Jun Aoyang had imagined. There was no suspense in this collision. However, there was no suspense. Jun Aoyang was crushed. His Sun-Moon Heavenly Wheel was directly crushed by the blood-colored galaxy, leaving no intact skin. The speed of the Crimson Galaxy wasn't fast, but it easily crushed Jun Aoyang's attack and crushed it into smithereens. The true Yuan of the first-level Sea of Soul Realm cultivators was the same. The Annihilation Flame was the same. Even the Sun-Moon Heavenly Wheel became the same thing in front of the Blood Galaxy. It was something that could be instantly destroyed by the Blood Galaxy. Boom! There was another explosion. This time, the Sun-Moon Heavenly Wheel was completely destroyed. Jun Aoyang, who was holding his spear, was sent flying. Jun Aoyang spun countless times in the air before smashing into the wall of the Heart Refining Tower. Blood spurted out of his mouth. However, although he was seriously injured, there wasn't the slightest bit of resentment on his face. He just looked at Tianyang and smiled bitterly. Chapter 529. You deserve to be the Sword King, Jun Aoyang said solemnly. This was one of the top prodigies in the east of the central region, acknowledging Tianyang. Break through to the spiritual sea realm as soon as possible. I'll wait for you on the spiritual roll, Jun Aoyang said again, and then his figure gradually disappeared. Finally, he completely disappeared from Tianyang's sight. He had been sent here by the Emperor of Taishu through some means. If Jun Aoyang succeeded, he could naturally stay. However, if he failed, the Emperor of Taishu would not waste his effort. He would immediately remove the teleportation on Jun Aoyang and kick him out. Spiritual role? Hearing this, Tianyang was slightly taken aback. Hearing this new term from Jun Aoyang's mouth had attracted his attention. A role that only spiritual sea realm cultivators can enter? Interesting. Although Jun Aoyang's talent is not bad, His cultivation is still too low. I wonder what his rank is. Tianyang chuckled. Then, he stepped into the teleportation door on the left that led to the 1075th level. After the joy of the 1074th level, it was naturally anger. However, this time it was not Tianyang who was angry, but, "You're finally here." A furious roar came from in front of Tianyang, bringing with it a terrifying gust of wind. Tianyang's eyes moved slightly as he looked at the person in front of him. This person was none other than Yuan Kai, who had obtained the inheritance of the White Tiger Divine General's cave abode. At this moment, Yuan Kai's eyes were filled with rage and killing intent. The inner Yuan in his body was constantly fluctuating, like a ferocious tiger that was about to devour its prey. "You made a fool of me in front of Jun Aoyang and that girl. Furthermore, you used some means to confuse my mind and kick me out of the Taishu Divine Palace," Yuan Kai roared. Hearing this, Tianyang was taken aback. His face was filled with confusion. It was true that he had made a fool of himself, but what the hell was that? Did this guy have persecutory delusions? "Anyway, die!" Yuan Kai roared. In the next moment, his figure disappeared from where he was, bringing with him layers of bloody shadows as he struck out with his palm. "Blood wind bone eroding palm!" Yuan Kai roared. First level C of Soul Realm Jin Yuan was condensed to the extreme, and a palm strike that could corrode bones and souls was suddenly thrown out. With endless murderous intent, the power of this palm was actually so terrifying. Earth Tier Superior Grade Martial Skill? Upon seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. With his great emperor vision, he naturally saw through the details of the blood wind bone eroding palm. Then, he smiled gently. Even 10 Jun Aoyangs wouldn't dare to say that he could kill me with a martial technique of this level. In the next moment, true essence surged within Tianyang's body. Without any fancy moves, he punched out. Bang! The blood wind bone eroding palm and Tianyang's fist collided fiercely. In the next moment, energy ripples surged, and a bloody gale suddenly rose in the surroundings. At the center of the battlefield, the bodies of the two people were motionless. This Yuan Kai's face was full of shock. He looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. His Earth Tier Superior Grade martial skill was blocked by Tianyang just like that? He didn't have the background of Jun Aoyang and Yi Qingyu. Even the beginning of his martial path was stealing. After that, he killed people for treasures, betrayed people, and so on. If not for this, his murderous intent wouldn't be so dense, and his blood wind bone eroding palm wouldn't be so powerful. But it was still easily blocked by Tianyang. "With this little power, you still dare to jump in front of me?" Tianyang laughed lightly. In the next moment, he used the 9 Heavens Dragon roaming steps and disappeared from the spot. He appeared behind Yuan Kai, and his expression turned serious. Then, he threw out a palm strike. Tens of thousands of dragon power were released at the same time. The terrifying physical strength ruthlessly acted on Yuan Kai's back. Pooh! Bang! Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Yuan Kai's body was sent flying like a cannonball. Many of the bones in his back were broken. If he hadn't reacted in time, his spine would have been broken by Tianyang. After rolling on the ground several times, Yuan Kai's body finally stopped. His blood-red robes were full of abrasions, and his white hair was also dyed red with blood. Resisting the pain, he climbed up from the ground. Yuan Kai's expression had already turned into shock and anger. How is this possible? How can a mere third-rate force produce such a genius? If he enters the spirit ranking, he might be able to charge into the top 700. Yuan Kai roared crazily in his heart. He was already at the first level of the Sea of Soul Realm, but in front of Tianyang, he was beaten to the point where he couldn't fight back at all. He was easily killed. His strength was around the 2000th place on the spirit ranking. Jun Aoyang was around the 2000th place. However, Tianyang first defeated Jun Aoyang and then killed Yuan Kai. With this strength, he might even be able to enter the top 1,000 of the spirit ranking. If he stepped into the Sea of Soul Realm, his strength would explode. When he thought of this, Yuan Kai's face turned gloomy. If Tianyang stepped into the Sea of Soul Realm, killing him would be absolutely easy. It would be better to strangle this genius in the cradle now. Raging blood! Yuan Kai suddenly stood up and roared towards the sky. The blood and true Yuan in his body started to boil, and the surrounding killing intent also swelled to a certain extent. Upper grade Earth Tier Martial Spirit, Bloody Slaughter Demonic Tiger. Yuan Kai roared. The power of his martial spirit condensed, and his eyes turned into scarlet vertical pupils that emitted an ice-cold light. Raging blood was a secret skill that he had seized from a disciple of a second-rate force. It was an explosive technique that was based on the sacrifice of blood. However, its power was greater than the blood sacrifice, and its side effects were also stronger than the blood sacrifice. However, in order to kill Tianyang, Yuan Kai could no longer care so much. As for the Bloody Slaughter Demonic Tiger, it was the descendant of an already extinct primordial ferocious beast. Although it wasn't a pure breed, its power was still extremely strong. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and some interest appeared on his face. He could see that after using the self-mutilating secret skill and martial spirit, Yuan Kai's cultivation was already close to the third level of the Sea of Soul Realm. Even Jun Aoyang might not be able to make me use this move. You should be honored to be able to force me to this extent. Yuan Kai laughed heartily. Hearing this, the corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up into a faint smile. The Styx sword in his hand flashed with white light, and the sky cloud sword that had been sealed for a long time appeared. Explosive technique? Just nice, I have one too. Tianyang smiled lightly, and the Styx sword in his hand flashed with a resplendent light, and a devouring power was quietly released. Seeing this, Yuan Kai's expression slightly froze, and an ominous premonition appeared in his heart. He immediately attacked without hesitation. White Tiger Fist Technique. White Tiger suppresses mountains and rivers. Yuan Kai roared. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes flashed with light. His devouring power had reached its peak. Chapter 530. Martial Soul Talent. Devour the Heavens. Ever since his martial soul evolved to half-step rank, Tianyang rarely used this move. First, it was naturally because Tianyang's strength had improved too much, while his opponent's level had improved too little. In most cases, Tianyang could use his own strength to kill his opponent. Secondly, the power of the secret art was too overwhelming. It could easily shatter the space and attract the attention of the true giants. However, the person in front of him was an idiot with no background, and this was the territory of the Great Void Emperor. Even if he returned to 10,000 years ago, he still wouldn't be able to break through this secret realm. Therefore, when Tianyang saw Yuan Kai use the self-mutilating secret technique to increase his strength, he had a sudden impulse and directly used this secret technique. And the result was, inside the refining heart tower, the endless energy turned into the purest energy and violently rushed out, pouring into Tianyang's body. The surrounding heaven and earth spirit chi was cleanly devoured by Tianyang and turned into Tianyang's cultivation. Even a portion of the bloody demonic tiger martial soul power in Yuan Kai's body was extracted and turned into Tianyang's battle strength. Tianyang's aura also began to rise crazily. Peak half-step Sea of Soul Realm. First level Sea of Soul Realm. Second level Sea of Soul Realm. Third level Sea of Soul Realm. After crossing 4 levels, Tianyang's aura finally stopped. However, the current Tianyang, in terms of battle strength, was enough to easily kill Yuan Kai. How is this possible? Feeling Tianyang's aura, which was much stronger than his own, Yuan Kai's entire body trembled, his face full of fear. Only by using such a self-mutilating secret art like Mad Blood Boil did he reach the peak of the second level of Sea of Soul Realm from the first level of Sea of Soul Realm. And the result? Tianyang had merely used an unknown secret art. It looked like he had consumed no energy at all, but he had actually reached the third level of Sea of Soul Realm. The higher one's cultivation was, the greater the difference between each small realm. The most ordinary third-level Sea of Soul Realm could easily crush the current Yuan Kai, not to mention Tianyang. I don't believe it. How could there be such a terrifying secret technique in this world? It must be fake. Yuan Kai roared hysterically. In the next moment, the murderous aura around his body soared to the limit. The White Tiger Fist appeared once again. White Tiger Fist technique, slaughter the world. Yuan Kai roared, and the true essence in his body surged. Vaguely, the shadow of a white tiger saint beast appeared behind Yuan Kai. The white tiger let out a ferocious roar and charged towards the Tianyang. However, Tianyang and the Taishu Emperor shook their heads and sighed when they saw the white tiger phantom. The white tiger is in charge of killing, not killing. Tianyang and the Taishu Emperor spoke at the same time. In the next moment, an extremely pure murderous aura appeared on Tianyang's body. With the slaughter domain under his feet and the sword of the Styx in his hand, Tianyang was like a real Azura descending to the world. Although the murderous aura on his body was crimson red and carried an unparalleled killing intent, it was different from Yuan Kai's murderous aura, which was filled with resentment, unwillingness, and hatred. Tianyang's was pure murderous aura. Otherwise, even if Tianyang had successfully cultivated the fourth move of the Styx sword technique, the Tao of Azura, he wouldn't have been able to form the slaughter domain. I don't know the White Tiger Fist technique, but I know what the true killing intent is, Tianyang said indifferently. Yuan Kai felt as if he had been struck by lightning. In the slaughter domain, his murderous aura was completely sealed. Even the White Tiger Fist technique couldn't save him now. It was also frozen in the slaughter domain. The true killing intent isn't pure slaughter. Killing one person is a sin, killing 10,000 people is a hero, and killing 9 million people is a hero among heroes. This is your killing intent. It's a pity that this is the killing intent of an ambitious and ruthless person. It's not the true killing intent, Tianyang said indifferently as he walked in front of Yuan Kai. Yuan Kai's body trembled, as if he was trying to break free from Tianyang's restraints. However, the murderous aura that filled the slaughter domain restrained him so much that he couldn't move. He couldn't even blink. The true killing intent isn't killing for the sake of killing. There's a way to steal, and there's a way to kill. Otherwise, how can it be called the killing intent? Yuan Kai looked at Tianyang in front of him, and suddenly felt a sense of foreboding. The person in front of him wasn't Tianyang, who was only 16 or 17 years old. Instead, he was an existence that was even stronger than the Emperor of the Taishu Emperor. Outside the Heart Refining Tower, the Emperor of the Taishu Emperor was shocked as he looked at Tianyang in disbelief. He already knew that Tianyang was a great emperor. Through the discussions of the others in the Taishu Mystery Land, he also knew what kind of person the Tianji Sword Emperor was. He hadn't lived for more than 500 years, but he was already a great emperor. Moreover, he had innately terminated meridians. This kind of talent already made the Emperor of the Taishu Emperor feel inferior. However, looking at it now, the Emperor of the Taishu Emperor suddenly felt that Tianyang wasn't the Tianji Sword Emperor. In fact, he was even stronger than the Tianji Sword Emperor. Including this life, the Tianji Sword Emperor is less than 500 years old. However, he has such a high level of cultivation in the sword principle and such understanding of the killing intent. The Emperor of the Taishu Emperor sighed in admiration. He's indeed a favored one. Unknowingly, the Emperor of the Taishu Emperor no longer called Tianyang by his name, but by his title. This was the kind of treatment he had given to people who were his equals or even stronger than him 100,000 years ago. If this had happened 100,000 years ago, it would have shaken the entire sky continent. The emperor of the Taishu Emperor actually treated someone like this. Tianyang didn't say much, but each word was like a gem. After hearing Tianyang's words, Yuan Kai's killing intent instantly vanished. Even his murderous aura was dispersing bit by bit. His Taoist foundation was destroyed. With just a few words, he was able to shatter a person's Tao foundation. Since ancient times, only Tianyang could do such a thing. With his Taoist foundation destroyed, Yuan Kai had no future to speak of. This was the end of his cultivation. Bastard! You destroyed my Taoist foundation. Just as Tianyang finished speaking, Yuan Kai came to his senses and roared at Tianyang in a frenzy. In the next moment, a look of resentment flashed across Yuan Kai's face. You destroyed my Taoist foundation, so don't even think about living. Immediately after, the true Yuan and blood that hadn't finished burning began to rage again. Yuan Kai's body flickered with an unstable light. The true Yuan in his body was unstable to the extreme, and in the next moment it exploded. Boom! Self-destruction. The White Tiger Supreme, Yuan Kai, was forced by Tianyang to self-destruct to end his life. Tianyang casually waved his sword and easily blocked Yuan Kai's self-destruction. Yuan Kai had never imagined that Tianyang would be so relaxed in the face of his self-destruction. Fine, I'm just casting pearls before swine. Tianyang pursed his lips. Just as he was about to leave, the sound of a space bag exploding rang out. Clang. Chapter 531. In the White Tiger Divine General's cave, Yuan Kai had killed many people and plundered their points in order to obtain the White Tiger Divine General's inheritance. And after leaving the White Tiger Divine General's cave and heading to the Great Void Immortal Palace, Yuan Kai had killed everyone he saw. Thus, his points were much higher than the last time Tianyang checked the hunting list. TSK, I wasn't playing the lute to a cow, but to **T. Tianyang pursed his lips and put away the token. From Yuan Kai's terrifying number, he could tell what was going on. That murky murderous aura from before had already proved that Yuan Kai's killing intent was second nature. Now that he saw this token, it was just additional evidence. But I'll still kindly accept it. Tianyang smiled gently and put the token away, turning it into Tianyang's points. Tianyang's points also shot up instantly. It broke through the shackles of 20,000 points and reached 21,398. It had already surpassed the record of 20,420 points in the history of the Great Void Mystic Domain. However, Tianyang did not care about this at this moment. Compared to the hunting list, the Great Void Emperor's inheritance was more important. Joy, anger, sorrow, and joy, I've already passed all of them. I wonder what sorrow, joy, love, evil, and desire are next. Tianyang chuckled and stepped onto the 1076th level. Within the sorrowful illusion. Lian you can't die. A sorrowful cry came from in front of Tianyang. Tianyang opened his eyes and was stunned. He had actually turned into a baby? At this moment, he was lying in the arms of a woman bathed in blood. His face was stained with blood, and in front of him was a middle-aged man with 3 spears stabbed into his body. He looked like he would not live much longer. He looked at Tianyang and the woman behind Tianyang and roared, "Langjun! I've already done my best." The northern wind blew, bringing with it an endless chill. Tianyang raised a hand as if wanting to caress the man's face, but halfway there, it dropped limply. There was no chance for it to be raised again. Tianyang could also feel the woman's body temperature rapidly dropping. Seeing this, the man could no longer bear it and roared at the sky. Ah! He released his surging true yuan, but unfortunately, while his cultivation was still there, the beauty was gone. I haven't even given you a name yet. Now that I'm about to leave with your mother, I'll give you a name. the man's face was full of tears. He looked at the baby and reached out to touch the baby's face. His rough palm gently stroked the baby's cheeks and gradually smoothed out the baby's wrinkles. The man said. The next moment, a terrifying force acted on Tianyang's body. The next moment, Tianyang was directly thrown out. At this moment, the man stood up and laughed maniacally at the demons around him. Come at me, demons! I'm a sky-profound realm cultivator. Even if I die, I'll drag a few people down with me. At this point, the illusion ended. Tianyang looked at the illusion that had returned to its original state. His heart felt like it was weighed down by a huge rock. Everything that happened just now was just an illusion. Why did it feel so familiar? Moreover, although he had been awake, he had not done anything. Why did the illusion suddenly disappear? Emperor Taishu, who was outside the refining heart tower, was also dumbfounded. He couldn't see anything in the refining heart tower, especially the last 7 levels. The last 7 levels tested a person's 7 emotions and 6 desires. They were built from the memories and experiences of the person being tested. Even the owner of the refining heart tower, Emperor Taishu, couldn't see them. Stuffing Jun Aoyang and Yuan Kai in was already the limit of Emperor Taishu. How did it pass so easily? What exactly is this illusory realm? Emperor Taishu was dumbfounded. His heart itched as if it was being scratched by a cat. Unfortunately, he couldn't see it. Tianyang arrived at the 1077th level. His expression was heavy. That sorrowful feeling had indeed appeared in Tianyang's heart, but he didn't express it. Forget it. Let's continue. Tianyang muttered to himself. For the time being, he forgot about the illusion from before and looked ahead. This illusion was called joy. It was even more joyful than when he defeated Jun Aoyang. However, it was just rubbish in front of Tianyang. After that, it was love. Ha, what a joke! How could she say love to a blockhead like Tianyang? The illusion turned into an adulterous couple flirting with each other in front of Tianyang. Tianyang's eyebrows twitched. He even felt that this was anger. If this illusion and the level that represented anger were switched, Tianyang might have really fallen for it. After love, there was evil. This evil wasn't evil. It was hatred. Of course, the target of this hatred was empty. It was just an outer realm demon whose face couldn't even be seen. How could it arouse Tianyang's hatred? Are you kidding me? Heavenly Sun was naturally speechless as he waved his hand and killed him. Why was the Taishu Emperor dropping the ball at the most important stages? If the Great Void Emperor was here, he would definitely cry out in grievance. This illusion was formed from your memories and experiences. He couldn't even see it, so what did it have to do with him? It was all because Tianyang had too little experience. He didn't even have a target of hatred. Otherwise, how could he pass the second last level so easily? Next, the last level, Emperor Taishu looked at the white that represented Tianyang. When he reached the top level of the refining heart tower, his heart sank. He knew that this was the key to whether his inheritance could be obtained by Tianyang, the inheritor with full marks. Happiness, anger, sorrow, joy, love, evil, and desire. The first 6 levels were all about one's mental state. Only the last level took into account both one's mental state and physical state. If the first 6 stages were not enough to determine the winner, then the final stage would completely crush the first 6 stages. Even Emperor Taishu himself would find it extremely difficult to pass this level. If he wasn't careful, there was a risk of failure. Although Tianyang had a strong Tao heart and a strong temperament, it was still unknown whether he could pass this level. At this moment, Tianyang had already reached the 1081st level, which was the last level. Tianyang looked around doubtfully. This was clearly a bedroom with a relatively large area. However, the decorations were a little strange. Beneath his feet was a bright red carpet. The tablecloth was also bright red. Even the curtains were bright red. There seemed to be some patterns behind the red, but Tianyang didn't pay attention and didn't see them clearly. At this moment, a gentle voice suddenly sounded. "Master, what are you waiting for? Today is a big day for us." Ling Yuhan smiled at Tianyang, half lying on the bed. Half of her shoulders, which were as smooth as jade, were also exposed. Chapter 532. Tianyang's eyebrows twitched unnaturally as he looked at the scene in front of him. It wasn't that he hadn't imagined the scene of the last level. As the last level of the 1,000-level refining heart tower, it couldn't be underestimated. However, the effect of this illusion was beyond even Tianyang's expectations. "Master, why are you in a daze? Why aren't you coming?" Ling Yuhan said with a languid expression as he lay on the bed. Coupled with his half-exposed shoulders, the atmosphere in this room that was filled with joy became charming and gentle. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyebrows twitched. If the person in front of him wasn't Ling Yuhan, Tianyang would have thought that this was the same crude illusion that would appear from time to disgust Tianyang. This tone, this expression, and this unguarded posture clearly showed that they were an old married couple. This Emperor Taishu is really asking for a beating. Tianyang's mouth twitched. He made up his mind to teach the Emperor Taishu a lesson after he got out. If the Emperor Taishu knew what Tianyang was thinking, he would probably cry. Even he couldn't control the last 7 levels. Even if he was the master of the refining heart tower, he wouldn't be able to see what you were doing inside. At this moment, Ling Yuhan, who was fighting on level 231, suddenly sensed that her surroundings had changed. Then, she appeared on a spacious 8-step bed. She was wearing a bright red wedding robe, and Tianyang was behind her. "What's going on?" Ling Yuhan was stunned. She turned around and looked at Tianyang. At this moment, a message suddenly appeared in her mind. Even the Emperor Taishu didn't expect the refining heart tower to have such a hidden setting. When there was an illusion in the refining heart tower that was connected to another person in the tower, it would interrupt the test of the person on the lower level and send them to the illusion of the person on the higher level. At this moment, Ling Yuhan was in such a situation. F***ck. Ling Yuhan was completely dumbfounded. This refining heart tower was so fun? However, in the next moment, Ling Yuhan's body trembled. She looked at the struggling Tianyang and her heart fluttered slightly. A sharp light flashed in her eyes. This is such a great opportunity. Master, that blockhead, would never have a chance outside. Now, this is a great opportunity given to me by the heavens. No matter what, I have to make Master submit to me now. Ling Yuhan laughed and then got up. If you don't come, then I'll go look for you. The ground wasn't dirty because this was an illusion. For the sake of authenticity, the refining heart tower even set the cleanliness of the wedding room to be as close to the level of reality as possible. Normal people would definitely not let a speck of dust in their wedding room. But when 2 cultivators got married, there would definitely not be a speck of dust. The moment Ling Yuhan stood up, her fair and long legs were exposed to the air. Tianyang's eyes were almost blinded by the sight of her white legs. The robe that was barely hanging on Ling Yuhan's right shoulder also fell down, revealing the 2 parts of her body that were beginning to take shape. Tianyang took a deep breath and gave himself a loud slap in his heart. The person in front of him was his disciple. Although this was only an illusion created by the refining heart tower, self-belief, Tianyang wouldn't do such a beastly thing to Ling Yuhan. At this time, Ling Yuhan held Tianyang's arm. Her soft arm was tightly pressed against Tianyang's arm, trying to pull Tianyang onto the bed. Ling Yuhan this time, no matter what, she had to do with Tianyang. As long as the rice was cooked, how could Tianyang not be with her? At this time, the surrounding air seemed to have risen by a few degrees. The entire room was filled with an ambiguous atmosphere. Ling Yuhan's face was full of excitement, and Tianyang's face gradually flushed. This stage was called desire. Naturally, Tianyang wouldn't be able to pass it with a clear mind. Otherwise, the refining heart tower wouldn't be able to pass the test. At this time, Ling Yuhan directly pressed her entire body tightly against Tianyang's body. Those two soft lumps rubbed against Tianyang's chest. Tianyang's eyes immediately widened, and a ball of fire rose in his lower abdomen. Wait! At this time, a wave of inner yuan condensed and pierced Tianyang's body like a needle. Tianyang instantly woke up. All of this, no matter how real and tempting it was still an illusion. The person in front of him was only an illusion created by the refining heart tower. She wasn't the real Ling Yuhan at all. At this thought, Tianyang's eyes became incomparably clear. The inner yuan in his body circulated and formed an invisible barrier between the two of them. The environment and atmosphere here are very real. It's also very suitable for the name of this stage. Your performance, demeanor, actions, and even all the details are exactly the same as Yuhan. Tianyang chuckled. There was a rare look of gentleness in his eyes. But sorry you're not her. In the next moment, the entire illusion was shattered. The curtains, floor, carpet, tablecloth, and the 8-step bed were all turned into fragments of energy and dissipated in this world. The entire illusion of the wedding night was also completely destroyed. A portal to the Great Void Holy Palace was instantly constructed and placed beside Tianyang. As long as Tianyang wanted to, he could leave this place at any time. This meant that he had passed the 1000-level refining heart tower. Everything around him had completely changed into an ordinary space in the tower. However, Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly and felt that something was wrong. The illusion was gone, and he had passed this stage. While looking at the angry Ling Yuhan in front of him, Tianyang suddenly felt confused. Why was this fake Ling Yuhan still here? Could it be? Humph! Ling Yuhan snorted angrily. Then, in a flash, she stepped into the portal before Tianyang and left the 1000-level refining heart tower. Tianyang had passed the entire 1000-level refining heart tower, which meant that Tianyang had passed the second test. Ling Yuhan was naturally kicked out directly. However, on the 1081st level, Tianyang's face was still in a mess. Could it be that everything before was real? Tianyang scratched his head and laughed bitterly. No wonder Yuhan looked so angry. Chapter 533. Inside the Great Void Divine Palace. The current Great Void Divine Palace was completely different from when Tianyang had just entered. Everything around him was filled with light and vibrant colors. Moreover, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was countless times more abundant than in the Stars Swordplay sect. Therefore, Tianyang could feel the spiritual chi of heaven and earth pouring into his dantian just by breathing in the air. It sped up the circulation of his true yuan. If the previous Great Void Divine Palace was a superior cultivation mystic realm, then the current Great Void Divine Palace was a true Great Emperor's cave abode. All of this was because Tianyang had passed the 1000-level refining heart tower and was qualified to receive the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. I didn't expect you to pass the 1000-level refining heart tower. The Great Void Emperor sighed as he looked at Tianyang. He deeply felt that the saying, "the new generation excels the old," was accurate. He was a genius from 100,000 years ago, but he also took 1,000 years to become an emperor. Tianyang, on the other hand, had cultivated for less than 500 years. 500 years was a drop in the ocean for a true almighty. The lifespan of a Sea of Soul Realm cultivator was far more than 1,000 years. These 500 years were just a snap of the fingers for the great emperors and emperors from 100,000 years ago. However, Tianyang had used 500 years to become an emperor. Moreover, he had passed the 1000-level refining heart tower that even the Great Void Emperor himself was not confident of passing. If I don't pass, are you going to give me your inheritance? Heavenly Sun chuckled. Hearing this, Emperor Taishu pursed his lips. Of course it's impossible for you not to pass, but I only wanted to give you a weaker version of the heart refining tower. For example, 108 levels, 490 levels, the Taishu Emperor said. Tianyang was speechless when he heard this. So the Taishu Emperor was trying to set him up in order to find a good successor. However, other than the last level, the other tests were not too difficult for Tianyang. Therefore, Tianyang did not mind. However, looking at Ling Yuhan, who was still fuming, Tianyang was speechless, but he couldn't say anything. After all, it was like writing on a piece of paper. The more he wrote, the worse it would get. Alright, let's not waste any more time. You can now proceed to the third stage, which is to inherit my succession. Seeing that Tianyang had regained his senses, the Emperor of Taishu's face turned serious. Upon hearing this, Tianyang's expression turned serious. Although the Taishu Emperor might not be as powerful as he was in his previous life, he was definitely a powerful emperor. For Tianyang, the inheritance of a great emperor was very meaningful. After all, Tianyang had challenged the Ice Emperor, Dragon Sage, and Sword Saint Zhou Xing in his previous life. Yuhan, you can leave first. Tianyang looked at Ling Yuhan and said softly. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan nodded and took a step out of the Taishu Palace. Of course, the Emperor of Taishu did not open the teleportation door, so she just waited outside. My cultivation is mostly above the realm of illusion. The Tao of illusion is broad and profound. Even if I wanted to pass it to you, I'm afraid you wouldn't accept it. Emperor Taishu said with a smile. Tianyang nodded noncommittally upon hearing this. He mainly cultivated the Tao of swords, and his physical body cultivated the Tao of lightning. He only dabbled in the Tao of fire and Tao of saber. Although the myriad divine fire gave him the foundation to cultivate the Tao of the heavens, he would not cultivate the Tao of illusion. Wouldn't he be too free to do that? However, this is not bad. My legacy has been passed down for a long time. Although it might not be passed down until 100,000 years later, it will still be passed down. Moreover, my Tao of illusion is still far from enough to deal with the Flame Demon King below. The Emperor of Taishu smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Flame Demon King? It turned out that the thing suppressed below the Taishu Palace was a Flame Demon King. You are also a great emperor, and your cultivation experience is not any worse than mine. I can't give you any battle experience, and the memory inheritance is even more useless. The Emperor of Taishu smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang's mouth twitched. The Emperor of Taishu's words were simply heart-wrenching. So the Emperor of Taishu's legacy was of little value to him. However, I also have many moves and treasures that I can pass down to you. The Emperor of Taishu's expression turned serious. The true yuan in his body surged, and 3 items appeared before him. These 3 items are the most suitable for you in my memory. Even if you break through to the heavenly completion realm and become a great emperor again, they will still be useful to you. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression also turned serious. Breaking through to the great emperor realm was also useful? Then, it would at least be a heaven-rank martial technique, or a superior grade spiritual weapon. The first one is a drop of divine dragon blood essence. I'm sure you know about the existence of the Wu Zun realm above the heavenly completion realm. The Emperor of Taishu said. His palm slapped the first treasure and gently sent it out. The true yuan wrapped around it slowly dissipated, revealing the treasure within. The drop of blood essence was emitting a 7-colored glow. It unleashed an imperious aura that seemed to originate from the primordial era. This drop of blood essence was left behind by a divine dragon above the Wu Zun realm. The Emperor of Taishu said. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes widened. He had seen the Wu Zun realm before. The Sword Star from Sword Star City, Xintian Wu Zun of the All-Heaven Sword, was the strongest existence in the Wu Zun realm. In the end, this drop of divine dragon blood essence was left behind by a divine dragon above the Wu Zun realm? Then, how high would the value of this treasure be? This drop of divine dragon blood essence was obtained from an ancient ruin in the ancient times. I risked my life countless times to obtain it. In that battle, even 3 emperors died, and 1 great emperor was severely injured. The Emperor of Taishu chuckled. Hearing this, Tianyang was even more shocked. Emperors and great emperors were existences that stood at the top of the pyramid in Heaven continent. These 2 existences were very tenacious. As long as it was not something at the level of a heavenly tribulation, it was almost impossible to kill them. In the end, because of a great battle, 3 emperors died and 1 great emperor was seriously injured. Immediately, Tianyang understood the value of this drop of divine dragon blood essence more clearly. You cultivate the dragon clan's body refining technique, and I am just a remnant soul. I have no use for this divine dragon blood essence. So, this divine dragon blood essence is yours. The Emperor of Taishu chuckled. Hearing this, Tianyang's heart trembled. The Emperor of Taishu must have paid a great price in that battle. But in the end, he gave it to him so casually? Just to let Tianyang grow stronger, and help him kill the fire demon king that was suppressed by the Taishu temple. Tianyang received the divine dragon blood essence with great care and put it away. At this moment, the Emperor of Taishu chuckled again. Among the 3 items, this is the lowest in value. Chapter 534. The weakest one? Tianyang's expression changed slightly. The divine dragon blood essence came from someone above Wu Zun's level. Its value was immeasurable. However, such a treasure was the weakest one? How powerful would the remaining 2 treasures be? He looked at himself, then at the great void divine palace, which was comparable to a holy land of martial arts, and then at the great void emperor, who had 2 treasures in front of him. He suddenly felt that he might be the poorest great emperor. Although the divine dragon blood essence is powerful and of a high level, you can't use it now, so it's naturally the weakest. The great void emperor chuckled and explained, the second one is a set of fist techniques. This fist technique was created when I was comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth. Its power is unparalleled. It's comparable to an upper-grade heaven-level martial technique. This fist technique is called Taishu Emperor Fist. Emperor Taishu said. In the next moment, the ball of light in the middle exploded, revealing the scroll within. The scroll was simple and had a strong ancient style. Emperor Taishu's expression changed as he held the scroll in his hand. Tianyang felt that the Emperor Taishu in front of him had changed from a wretched old man to an awe-inspiring great emperor. In my current state, I can only use this fist technique once. However, you must take a good look at this fist technique. If you can understand part of it, it will be much easier for you to cultivate this fist technique. Emperor Taishu said. Tianyang nodded slightly. An upper-grade heaven-tier fist technique was the most powerful fist technique he had ever seen. Although his celestial extreme sword technique was not the slightest bit inferior to a heaven-rank high-quality martial skill, and might even surpass it, due to the fact that only Tianyang was able to cultivate it, it was only a heaven-rank mid-quality martial skill. As for the Dragon King Divine Fist, although it was powerful and had become much stronger after comprehending the 10,000 Dragons massacre, it was only a lower-grade heaven-level martial technique. However, this Taishu Emperor Fist was an upper-grade heaven-level martial technique. Even a great emperor would find it difficult to cultivate a martial technique of this level. It was no wonder that great Emperor Taishu would say such words. Watch carefully. The great Void Emperor suddenly roared, and the true Yuan in his body burst forth. Tianyang's soul power circulated rapidly as he watched the great Void Emperor's every move. In the next moment, an overpowering aura burst out from Emperor Taishu's body. Unparalleled fist will was unleashed. Taishu Imperial Fist. The Taishu Emperor let out a furious roar. His vital energy roared, and everything was destroyed. An old fist punched out, but it caused the energy of the entire world to surge. It was as if one was in the depths of a raging sea, and in the next moment, a supreme aura erupted. Boom, 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 boom. The entire Taishu Divine Palace was shaking, but it was different from the illusion of the Taishu Emperor. This Taishu Emperor's fist had the power to break the heavens and earth. It was completely different from the Tao of illusion that the Great Void Emperor walked. It was no wonder that the Great Void Emperor said that it was suitable for him. At this moment, the terrifying fist will was completely unleashed. The space shattered into countless pieces like glass, and even the darkness behind was almost shattered. The Taishu Divine Palace shook violently, as if it was about to shatter. At this moment, the Demon King that was suppressed under the Taishu Divine Palace suddenly opened his eyes. This is the aura of the Taishu Old Devil. Taishu Imperial Fist? After so many years, I've become so weak, and this old devil can still use Taishu Imperial Fist? Bastard! I'm the Flame Demon King. Am I going to be trapped here for the rest of my life? An inhuman voice roared from the ground. Demonic chi dissipated, but it was all destroyed by the power of Taishu Imperial Fist. The Great Void Emperor's eyes narrowed, and he noticed the situation underground. His expression changed slightly, and he retracted his fist. This Flame Demon King still has so much demonic chi. It seems like the situation is not good, the Great Void Emperor said solemnly. However, the seal of the Great Void Secret Realm was still very strong. The Great Void Emperor was relieved, and he turned to Tianyang. How do you feel? Very strong. As expected of an upper-grade heaven-class fist technique, Tianyang said. Then, the true yuan in his body fluctuated slightly. His expression turned serious, and the aura that could conquer the 9 heavens appeared on his body. Seeing this, the Great Void Emperor's eyes widened, and he looked at Tianyang in disbelief. This was just one move. This guy had already entered the sect? In the next moment, Tianyang roared and punched out. The space shook, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth went berserk. Compared to the previous punch, it was indeed much weaker. After all, Tianyang's cultivation was only at the half-step C of Soul Realm, and the Great Void Emperor was the remnant soul of a great emperor. The gap between them was too big. However, the Great Void Emperor's shock did not subside much. Because, in the previous punch, the Great Void Emperor saw something that did not belong to the original Taishu Imperial Fist. It was a sharp aura that belonged exclusively to the Tianji Sword Emperor. It was an aura that pressed forward and crushed everything in its path. This was the favored one of the 10,000 years. The younger generation will surpass us in time. The younger generation will surpass us in time, the Great Void Emperor sighed. Then, he passed the scroll of the Taishu Imperial Fist to Tianyang. Your performance was outstanding. Therefore, this Taishu Imperial Fist is not a disgrace to you. The next one is the most suitable for you. The Great Void Emperor smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He put away the Taishu Imperial Fist and looked at the last ball of light. The last one would definitely be the most powerful treasure. What was the treasure that could suppress the divine dragon essence blood and the Great Void Emperor's fist? Whether it was the Taishu Imperial Fist or the divine dragon blood essence, not many people in the primordial age, the antiquity age, 10,000 years ago, or now could produce them. The Great Void Emperor had something even more powerful? The last one is a sword embryo. It's called the Taishu Sword Embryo. The Taishu Sword Embryo was not forged by me. Like the divine dragon blood essence, it came from an ancient mystery land. It's a pity that it's only an incomplete sword embryo, and not a complete sword. Otherwise, it might even surpass the level of a spiritual weapon. The Great Void Emperor sighed softly. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed. Surpass the level of a spiritual weapon? Wouldn't that mean that it was above the level of Wuzun? However, if you nurture it well, you might be able to forge the Taishu Sword Embryo into a complete product. Anyway, I'll give you everything here. The Great Void Emperor handed it to Tianyang with a smile. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded and kept it. Even though it was just a sword embryo, the Taishu sword embryo was at the level of a medium spiritual weapon. If it was merged with the stick sword, it would be even stronger. If Tianyang broke through to the spiritual sea realm, the stick sword would not be enough. Now that he had a Taishu sword embryo, it was like having a cup of water to drink and a pillow to sleep. Chapter 535. Divine Dragon Blood Essence. Void Emperor's Fist. Void Sword Embryo. If any one of these three treasures were to be released, it would cause Spirit King experts and even Ascension Realm experts to go crazy. With the three of them together, even sovereigns and great emperors would not be able to resist snatching them. It could be said that each of these treasures could cause rivers of blood to flow in the Sky Continent. I can use the Void Sword Embryo now, and so can the Void Emperor's Fist. However, this divine dragon blood essence can only be refined after reaching the spiritual sea realm. Tianyang muttered. Hearing this, the Great Void Emperor smiled faintly. It's all right. As long as you can return to the Great Void Mystery Realm within 5 years and kill the sealed Flame Demon King, it'll be fine. This Flame Demon King had the strength of a great emperor when he was alive, probably similar to you. However, after being sealed for 100,000 years, his cultivation must have been exhausted. Currently, he's only at the 8th or 9th level of the spiritual sea realm. If you reach the Spirit King realm, you can come and kill him. The Great Void Emperor smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly. Reaching the Spirit King realm within 5 years? If that was the case, it was not impossible. After all, Tianyang would be 17 years old in a month, and he was reborn at the age of 15. In 2 years' time, he had transformed from the head of the 3 great trash of the Lingyun School's outer court who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken to a half-step sea of soul realm martial artist who could casually kill a prodigy of the spirit ranking. If such a speed were to be revealed, perhaps no one would believe it. After all, this was a miracle, and Tianyang had created this miracle. Then I won't keep you. However, I will give you a control brand of the Great Void Palace. If you want to return, you can do so at any time. The Great Void Emperor said. In the next moment, Tianyang felt the small sword in his space bag begin to glow and heat up. Tianyang's heart trembled, and he immediately took out the mini-sword. Seeing this, the Great Void Emperor looked at Tianyang in surprise. I didn't expect the brand's original body to be with you. This makes things easier. The Great Void Emperor chuckled. In the next moment, he formed a seal with both hands. The mini-sword actually moved on its own and rose into the air, turning into a ball of blazing flames. This ball of flames fell into Tianyang's palm and turned into the Great Void Palace seal. This, Heavenly Sun said as he looked at the mark in his hand. Hearing this, Emperor Taishu merely smiled. I'm already dead, so there's no point in keeping these things. You have the heavy responsibility of slaying the devil, so it's only natural that I give them to you. Emperor Taishu laughed heartily. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly, then bit the tip of his finger. A drop of the Emperor's blood suddenly. Tianyang, at this moment Tianyang. Within 5 years, I will definitely become a Spirit King and return to the Great Void Secret Realm to slay the Flame Devil King. If I violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me, Tianyang said loudly. Hearing this, the Great Void Emperor's heart trembled. That drop of blood also disappeared. In the sky, there was a faint sound of thunder. Obviously, the heavens and earth already knew about the Great Void Oath. If Tianyang really did not kill the Flame Demon King within 5 years, the heavens would send down a calamity to kill Tianyang. The Great Void Emperor's heart trembled. He never thought that Tianyang, a great emperor whose strength was above his in the past, would make such a huge oath. Many thanks. The Great Void Emperor bowed and said sincerely. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled gently. It's my duty. If I can't become a spirit king within 5 years, I might as well quit. Then, Tianyang looked at the Great Void Palace seal in his palm. He activated his vital energy and refined it without any hindrance. In the next moment, Tianyang felt that he had established some kind of connection with the Great Void Palace. It was as if everything was under his control. All right, we're leaving. You don't have to send us off. Tianyang smiled gently. His finger drew a line in the air and a space door appeared. He walked in. The Great Void Emperor looked at Tianyang's move in amazement. His use of the power of space had reached the point where he could casually create a space door. What a monster! The favored one of the 10,000 years cannot be judged by common sense. All right, 5 years, Flame Demon King Inhua? Let's have a good fight in these 5 years. The Great Void Emperor laughed loudly. Then, his figure disappeared from the Great Void Palace. Master, you're out? You've obtained the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor? Outside the Great Void Palace, Ling Yuhan looked at Tianyang, who had walked out, and asked excitedly. In Ling Yuhan's eyes, Tianyang was already an invincible existence. In the end, he had obtained the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. What level would he reach? Hearing that, Tianyang smiled faintly. I don't have the inheritance. I don't cultivate the way of illusion. Naturally, I can't obtain the inheritance of the Great Void Emperor. However, there are many good things outside of the inheritance. Hearing that, Ling Yuhan was stunned. She did not understand. However, Tianyang did not intend to explain. It would be too troublesome to explain these things. It would be better not to explain. Now, there's only a little more than a month left before the Great Void Secret Realm closes. Master, your first place has been taken by others. Ling Yuhan was a little anxious. They were in the Great Void Palace and naturally did not know about the changes in the outside world. While Tianyang was accepting the 3 treasures, Ling Yuhan also looked at the hunting list. Only then did she know about the passage of time. This time, the cave abodes of the 4 Grand Generals had been opened, and the Great Void Palace had been discovered by everyone. In addition, these people were not weak to begin with. Naturally, many of the beasts in the Great Void Secret Realm had been killed. Tianyang had obtained more than 20,000 points, surpassing the previous record. However, this time, many geniuses had appeared. Who knew how many of them had surpassed the previous record? Tianyang was currently ranked 9th. As for Ling Yuhan, she had dropped to 34th. As for the current first place, it was the Flame Monarch Jun Aoyang. At this moment, Jun Aoyang had obtained 30,000 points and was in first place. The second was a prodigy from the Heavenly Fiend cult named Song Xing. This Song Xing was also at the first level of the Sea of Soul realm. He was not much weaker than Yi Qingyu. Ever since Yi Qingyu was killed, he had become the number 1 of the Sky Demon cult in the Great Void Secret Realm. Moreover, Song Xing had obtained some opportunities. His strength was not much weaker than Jun Aoyang's. He had more than 29,000 points. The person who was ranked 9th was the previous number 1, Azura Sword King Tianyang. Oh! Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. He seemed to have felt something and laughed lightly. No matter. Soon, there will be a place for us in the top 5. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was stunned. Soon? Ling Yuhan only had 6,000 points. The top 5 had at least 26,000 points. Soon, there would be 20,000 points? How was this possible? At this moment, Tianyang waved his hand, and the doors of the Great Void Palace opened. Chapter 536. Sir, look. The door is open. At this moment, a shrill voice came from outside the Great Void Palace. Hearing this, Song Xing, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes immediately. Then, he saw Tianyang and Ling Yuhan standing at the entrance of the Great Void Divine Palace, their faces calm. It's finally open. My 1 week of waiting was not in vain. Song Xing's face turned hideous as he looked at Tianyang, greed flashing in his eyes. Tianyang, you killed my big brother and stole my legacy. How should I punish you? Song Xing took a step forward and said proudly. Originally, his talent was not as good as Yi Qingyu's. However, this month, Song Xing had obtained a great opportunity that was comparable to the legacy of the 4 great generals. The treasure of the flame demon. Because of this treasure, Song Xing had broken through to the first level of the Sea of Soul realm. His strength had exploded, and he had jumped from a nobody to second place on the hunting list. He was second only to Zhu Naoyang, who was from the Sun Moon sect and the Flame Sovereign King. Therefore, Song Xing, whose strength had skyrocketed, was bursting with confidence. Naturally, he did not care about Tianyang and Ling Yuhan. If not for the fact that Tianyang and Ling Yuhan had obtained the legacy of the Great Void Emperor, he would not have even bothered with Tianyang. The so-called big brother Yi Qingyu? He was just making things up. How should I punish you? Hearing this, Tianyang's lips curled into a subtle smile. This person actually wanted to punish him? Ling Yuhan, who was beside him, laughed. How could this Song Xing be so confident? However, seeing Tianyang and Ling Yuhan's behavior, Song Xing's face gradually darkened. How dare you ignore me? Song Xing snorted coldly, then waved his left hand. A burly young man beside Song Xing suddenly stepped forward. His lustful gaze swept over Ling Yuhan's body. Then, his murderous gaze landed on Tianyang. How dare you offend Sir Song Xing? Kid, you're courting death. Moreover, how dare you obtain the legacy of the Great Void Emperor? Hand it over. The burly young man snorted coldly, then charged out. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. The Great Void Palace was right in front of him. Naturally, there was no way to hide it. However, this Song Xing, who had come knocking on his door so quickly, it was out of his expectations. Of course, no matter how unexpected it was, Tianyang didn't care. Die. Low-grade earth-tier martial arts technique. The sturdy young man roared as his half-step Sea of Soul realm Zhen Yuan surged out. In the next moment, he directly punched out. However, Tianyang smiled faintly. His soul was the soul of a great emperor and was extremely sturdy. Break. Tianyang casually waved his hand, and a palm print burst out, directly hitting the young man's fist. Boom. The Heaven Soul fist instantly shattered, and the young man himself was sent flying. In the next moment, Tianyang's qi yi fluctuated slightly. The young man's body suddenly twisted, and his expression changed. This, however, before he could finish his sentence, his body exploded into a bloody mist in mid-air. Not even his bones were left. Seeing this, the 6 or 7 people beside Song Xing turned pale, and they all looked at Tianyang in horror. Among them, the intrepid youth was already ranked in the upper middle. If even he could be easily killed by Tianyang, how could they possibly defeat him? Song Xing laughed coldly. You're indeed the former number 1 on the hunting list. Azura Sword King, you're not weak at all. However, I advise you to obediently hand over the Great Void Emperor's inheritance. Otherwise, I'll have to capture you and interrogate you. Song Xing laughed coldly. Tianyang's expression did not change, and he still looked indifferent. He stretched out his left hand, and his thumb, index finger, ring finger, and little finger retracted. Then, he slowly raised his middle finger. Then, he hooked his middle finger in Tianyang's direction. Bastard! Seeing this, Song Xing's expression darkened to the extreme. A gloomy young man beside him immediately charged out. Don't think you can be arrogant just because you killed that blockhead. This time, I'll be the one to kill you, you arrogant brat. The gloomy young man roared, and his chi-yi was even stronger than the burly young man's. Upper Earth class martial technique, sky-shattering blood fist. The gloomy young man roared, and in the next moment, streaks of blood shot out from his body, heading straight for Tianyang. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. This punch already had the power of a first-tier Sea of Soul Realm warrior, but it was only from a half-Sea of Soul Realm warrior. This gloomy young man's talent was not weak. Unfortunately, Tianyang shook his head. He did not even bother to open his left hand, and just casually waved his left hand. A fist with only his middle finger exposed instantly shattered the streaks of blood and landed heavily on the gloomy young man's body. Pung! Pooh! The gloomy young man was instantly sent flying, and blood spurted from his mouth. He crashed heavily onto the ground, and countless ribs were broken. His dantian was also shattered by this move, and blood spurted out continuously. It seemed like he would not survive. "This is the strength of your lackey?" Tianyang chuckled. He did not bother to look at the gloomy young man, and looked at Song Xing with a faint smile. Unable to withstand a single blow. Next. Arrogant! It's only 2 people who were killed. How dare you be so arrogant? Let's attack together. I don't believe that we can't kill him. I don't believe that this Tianyang is invincible. The moment these words were spoken, the 5 people behind Song Xing were infuriated. They all circulated their true yuan and soared into the sky. Feeling the true yuan fluctuations from these 5 people, Tianyang's brows twitched. These 5 people were actually all half-Sea of Soul Realm warriors. For the sake of recruiting underlings, this Song Xing had spared no effort. After all, it was not easy to find someone of this level. At this moment, the 5 people had already launched their moves. Earth high-grade martial skill, Blood Sky Palm. Earth low-grade martial skill, Red Soaring Fist. Earth mid-grade martial skill, Red Stone Fist. Earth mid-grade, 5 Earth rank martial skills exploded from the 5 people's hands, and they ruthlessly attacked Tianyang. However, seeing this scene, Tianyang's expression was incomparably indifferent. "It's just an insignificant trick." Tianyang chuckled and punched out. Great Void Emperor's Fist. An unparalleled pressure exploded and a fist print shot out. These 5 Earth rank martial skills exploded one after another. Chapter 537. With a casual wave of his hand, one of his subordinates had died. With a casual punch, another one had died. Now, with a single punch, all of his subordinates had been reduced to ashes. Bastard! Song Xing felt as if his heart was bleeding. He had spent a lot of effort to recruit these subordinates to join the Heavenly Demon Cult and raise his position there. These were all tools he had used to win the position of Young Master. In the end, because of Tianyang, these tools had all died. Unable to withstand a single blow, next. "Oh no, only you are left, you idiot." Tianyang chuckled as he looked at Song Xing. His eyes were filled with indifference. It was as if Song Xing had been a stepping stone since birth. Domineering, indifferent, arrogant. He was above Song Xing. Song Xing's teeth were chattering as he clenched his fists. Then, he roared. "Don't think you can be arrogant just because you killed my subordinates. In front of me, you are nothing but trash." Song Xing roared. In the next moment, he charged forward, the true yuan in his body exploding as he punched. Blood Sky Shattering Fist. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression did not change as he looked at the fist in front of him. This fist was the same move that the gloomy youth had used before. However, this move was much stronger when used by Song Xing than when the gloomy youth had used it, because Song Xing was a first-level Sea of Soul Realm expert. Rolling blood light was released, bringing with it endless blood chi and surging killing intent. Greed and killing intent flashed in the depths of Song Xing's eyes. However, although it was well hidden, Tianyang still saw it. "Go to hell. Emperor Taishu's inheritance is mine." Song Xing roared. In the next moment, endless blood light exploded. At this moment, Tianyang shook his head. "Blood chi and killing intent can't even compare to Yuan Kai, and you want to kill me? Are you here to be a joke?" Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, Song Xing's expression changed. Yuan Kai? What about the white tiger sovereign Yuan Kai, who had vanished without a trace over 20 days ago? So, Yuan Kai had died at Tianyang's hands. Humph. So what if he killed Yuan Kai? Break! Song Xing shouted angrily. In the next moment, he threw out a punch. Waves of bloodlight shot towards Tianyang. As for Tianyang, he faintly smiled. He revolved his draconic strength and punched out. Boom! The power of 1,000,000 dragon points burst forth, shattering the blood-red light. Countless dragon aura condensed and slammed toward Song Xing. What? Song Xing's expression changed drastically. His sky-shattering blood fist had been broken so easily? Channeling the true essence within his body, Song Xing was just about to attack and destroy the Dragon Aura Dragon. Unfortunately, the Dragon Aura Dragon had already bombarded his body. Boom! Song Xing spat out a mouthful of blood as his body flew backwards and crashed heavily onto the ground. Blood gushed out from his mouth as he was severely injured. Song Xing, ranked second on the hunting list, had been severely injured by Tianyang, ranked ninth, with just one punch. If others were to see this scene, they would be incomparably shocked. One had to know that Song Xing was at the first level of the Sea of Soul Realm, while Tianyang was only at the half-step Sea of Soul Realm. A half-step Sea of Soul Realm martial artist severely injuring a first-level Sea of Soul Realm martial artist with just one punch. No one would believe such a thing. Pooh! Damn it! Song Xing struggled to get up from the ground. Blood kept spitting out of his mouth, and his aura was extremely weak. He did not dare to believe that he, a first-level Sea of Soul Realm martial artist, would be so easily defeated by Tianyang. Damn bastard! You forced me to do this! Song Xing's eyes flashed with malevolence. In the next moment, Song Xing soared into the air. Flames of the fiery demon burned fiercely. Waves of demonic chi were also released. I used this move to fight for the position of young lord. In the end, it was exposed to you. However, it doesn't matter if it was exposed to you. After all, a dying man won't speak. Song Xing laughed loudly. On his body, the red flames were the outer flames, and the black flames were the core. Together with the billowing demonic chi, it was as if Song Xing had transformed into a fiery demon. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. A trace of killing intent flashed across Tianyang's eyes. Fiery demon? Without a doubt, the flames on Song Xing's body were related to the fiery demon king under the Great Void Divine Palace. The power of the fiery demon. Ha ha! Tianyang, die for me! Song Xing laughed wantonly. A ball of flame burned fiercely in his hand. This was the treasure he had obtained. In the ancient times, when the Great Void Emperor and the fiery demon king Yin-Hua fought, sparks were produced. This spark had not been extinguished after 100,000 years. It was even found by Song Xing and refined into his own possession. Therefore, Song Xing had no fear as he mocked Tianyang. However, seeing this scene, Tianyang shook his head with pity. After refining the spiritual fire, you will at most die from the backlash. After refining the fiery demon flame, TSK. Even if you die, you will become a puppet and slave of the fiery demon race. Unfortunately, what you refined was the fiery demon king's flame. Tianyang muttered to himself as he looked at Song Xing in the sky. Even Song Xing himself did not realize that his personality, soul, and even body had been demonized by this spark. There was also a trace of demonic chi in his primordial energy. When Tianyang saw this scene, he immediately understood that this fellow was dead meat. Humph! Full of nonsense. Die for me. Fiery demon bursting flame fist. Song Xing snorted coldly. The primordial energy in his body surged, and streams of demonic chi were released. He charged directly at Tianyang. The flames burned fiercely, bringing with them an incomparably powerful aura. Boom! Tianyang's expression did not change. He looked indifferently at the scene before him and sighed softly. This fellow could not be saved. Since that was the case, then, kill. Streams of dragon chi gathered. Tianyang did not even bother to draw his sword. He released the true dragon core in his body, and thousands of dragons roared. Dragon King's divine fist, 10,000 dragons slaying gods. Tianyang roared. In the next instant, countless dragons of dragon chi attacked. Countless fiery demon flames were extinguished, and even Song Xing himself was sent flying. Bang! This time, Song Xing no longer had the strength to get up. Blood spurted from his mouth, and he was on the verge of death. How is this possible? How can a third-rate force ant have such power? Song Xing roared. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression was indifferent. Primordial energy gathered in his hand, and he was about to cut off Song Xing's head when Song Xing roared. How dare you kill me? From the heavenly demon cult, only Yi Qingyu and I can fight for the position of young master. Nothing will happen if you kill Yi Qingyu. But if you kill me, you will be killing the young master of the heavenly demon cult. You have killed the young master of the heavenly demon cult. The heavenly demon cult will definitely not let this matter rest. Song Xing roared. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression was calm, and he chuckled. The one I am killing is from the heavenly demon cult. In the next instant, Tianyang raised his hand and slashed. Song Xing was dead. Chapter 538. To Tianyang, killing Song Xing was just a small matter. With a wave of his hand, Song Xing's space bag appeared in Tianyang's hand. After Tianyang easily broke through the soul imprint inside, he took a look at the contents of Song Xing's space bag. The spiritual stones were piled up into a small mountain. Every one of them was a superior-grade spiritual stone. At a rough glance, there were at least a few 100,000 spiritual stones. As for the spiritual stones that Song Xing had used for his own cultivation, there were even more. There were also weapons. There were almost all kinds of weapons here. However, their quality was not uniform. The best was only a low-grade spiritual weapon. The stick sword that Tianyang used was almost a middle-grade spiritual weapon. Moreover, he had a great void sword embryo that was at the peak of the middle-grade spiritual weapon level. It was an embryo that surpassed the level of a spiritual weapon. Naturally, he didn't care about these scraps of metal. After that, there were elixirs and medicinal herbs. Elixirs, recovery type, breakthrough type, accumulation type, and poisonous elixirs. There were all kinds of elixirs. It was a pity that Tianyang treated them all as trash. As for medicinal herbs, Tianyang cared a little about them. Some of the precious medicinal herbs could be used to refine some extremely rare elixirs that would become extinct after 10,000 years. However, the most important thing now is this token. Tianyang smiled faintly and took out Song Xing's token. He looked at the 29,890 points on it and directly absorbed them into his own token. From then on, Song Xing's name was removed from the hunting list. As for Tianyang, he jumped from 9th place to 1st place. He had more than 50,000 points, crushing Jun Aoyang by more than 20,000 points. It could be said that in the remaining month, as long as Tianyang didn't slack off, he would be able to suppress Jun Aoyang. At this time, Ling Yuhan finished checking the battlefield and took the space bags of the 7 lackeys. You deal with it yourself. I can't be bothered. Tianyang pursed his lips. Although the points of these lackeys were quite high, Tianyang couldn't be bothered to take them. Points were just numbers. The most important thing was still the ranking. Tianyang was almost guaranteed to get 1st place. Naturally, he wouldn't care about the number of points. No one would give you a single gold coin if you had more than that. Tianyang didn't even plan to touch the things inside. After all, they belonged to Ling Yuhan, and what belonged to Ling Yuhan was also his. However, upon hearing this, Ling Yuhan was extremely touched. Thank you, master. After that, Ling Yuhan, who was chasing after Ling Yuhan, happily took out all the tokens inside and turned them into his own point. As for Ling Yuhan, it was as if she was sitting on a rocket. From the 34th rank, he had soared all the way to the 3rd. Each of these 7 people had at least a few thousand points. The gloomy young man and the tough-looking young man had the most points, with around 8,000 points. In total, Ling Yuhan's points had reached a whopping 27,000 points. If she wanted to defeat Zhu Naoyang, it was just a matter of moving her hands. Master said that I would be in the top 5, so I am in the top 5. Master is really amazing. Ling Yuhan's eyes sparkled as she looked at Tianyang's back. She was very excited. At this time, Tianyang had already summoned the Heaven Pagoda. After teasing little Luoluo inside, he walked in. What are you standing there for? Let's go. Tianyang looked at Ling Yuhan, who was standing there like a love-struck fool, and waved his hand. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan seemed to have woken up from a dream. She hurriedly walked in. Then, a huge object rose into the air and flew in a certain direction. Damn it! He beat me up the moment he came out. Even Ling Yuhan almost beat me up. Does he have to be so ruthless? Zhu Naoyang stood at the peak of a mountain and looked helplessly at Tianyang's 50,000 points. He had the urge to kneel down. He had worked so hard for so long, but he had only accumulated 30,000 points. Tianyang, on the other hand, had directly harvested Song Xing's point. That was a difference of more than 20,000 points. Even if Zhu Naoyang was given another month, he might not be able to harvest that much. Hunting beasts was only done by the middle-ranked cultivators. The others either had their points stolen or were robbed. Zhu Naoyang was still fine. If others didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. He wouldn't attack them directly. Therefore, his speed of accumulating points wasn't as fast. However, Zhu Naoyang knew that Tianyang was also such a person. In fact, Tianyang's temper was even better than his. Otherwise, when Yuan Kai released his murderous aura, Tianyang would have directly killed him. In fact, Zhu Naoyang didn't know that Tianyang didn't do that because, trouble, sigh, I don't care anymore. Even if I lose my first place, I have to keep my second place. Otherwise, my old man at home will break my legs. Zhu Naoyang sighed softly. He silently despaired of the difference between him and Tianyang. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Master, what are we going to do? Ling Yuhan was puzzled. At this moment, they didn't seem to be strolling around the Great Void Mystery Realm. Instead, they were moving in a direction. Their speed was getting faster and faster, as if they were heading straight for a destination. However, she had been following Tianyang all this time. She didn't know where Tianyang was going. Nothing much. I'm just killing someone for fun, Tianyang said lightly. Ling Yuhan was stunned. At this moment, the Heaven Tower suddenly shook and stopped. Tianyang's figure flashed and disappeared from the Heaven Tower. At this moment, in the mountains below the Heaven Tower. I didn't expect there to be someone deep in the mountains. A young man looked at Tianyang mockingly. He was an inner disciple of the heavenly demon cult. His strength was extraordinary. With a cultivation base of half-step C of Soul Realm, he was practically invincible in this corner. Naturally, he didn't take Tianyang seriously. Just nice. I'm just short of a few points to enter the top 200 of the hunting list. At that time, the heavenly demon cult will definitely reward me. Then, young Master Yi Qingyu and Lord Song Xing will definitely praise me. The Sky Demon cult youth laughed out loud. Tianyang did a double take at that. It would have been fine if that fellow didn't know that he had killed Song Xing, but he didn't even know that Yi Qingyu had been killed? He really didn't know because this person had been staying in this mountain range since the beginning. He relied on hunting beasts and robbing passers-by to obtain points. He didn't know anything about the outside world. At this moment, the youth saw that Tianyang didn't react at all. His face suddenly turned sinister. You actually dare to ignore me? You're courting death. Earth rank martial technique, Heavenly Demon Fist. Black True Yuan condensed, and a fist carrying the might of a half-step sea of soul realm shot out violently. The youth roared. At this moment Ling Yuhan was stunned. This is someone from the Heavenly Demon cult? At this moment, Tianyang smiled lightly and stretched out his hand. Pung! A large illusory hand grabbed the youth's head and pulled it out from his neck. Chapter 539. After easily killing the Heavenly Demon cult disciple, Tianyang did not stay for long. His target was only the Heavenly Demon cult. Therefore, no matter how many treasures and points the others had, he did not plan to touch them. After all, they could not compare to him. Master, Master! Just as Tianyang stepped into the heavenly pagoda, Ling Yuhan skipped over and asked in surprise, "How did you do it? This place is so deserted. This guy doesn't even know anything about the outside world." "Master, how did you find him?" Ling Yuhan asked. She knew that Tianyang was omnipotent, but this was too amazing. After coming out of the Great Void Divine Temple, Tianyang did not hesitate at all and ran straight here. He even knew where this person was so accurately. Even the terrifying existence of the Tianji sect could not compare to him. "Have you forgotten? I have the Great Void Emperor's mark of the Great Void Divine Temple." Tianyang chuckled. He controlled the heavenly pagoda and flew in another direction. The Great Void Divine Temple is the core of the entire Great Void Secret Realm. Therefore, when I control the Great Void Divine Temple, it is equivalent to controlling the entire Great Void Secret Realm. Everyone in the Great Void Secret Realm is under my control. Who is where, who is doing what, who killed people, and who was killed, I know everything. Tianyang smiled faintly. Ling Yuhan's eyes widened when she heard that. Her face was filled with disbelief. Tianyang controlled the entire Great Void Secret Realm. If this was said, 100 out of 100 people would not believe it. However, this was the only explanation for Tianyang's previous performance. "Master, you are too amazing," Ling Yuhan exclaimed. Tianyang smiled nonchalantly when he heard that. Knowing the location of everyone in the Great Void Secret Realm was just the most basic method. The Great Void Divine Temple itself was a genuine upper-grade spiritual weapon. Although Tianyang could not take it away, he could still make good use of it in the Great Void Secret Realm. Moreover, Tianyang also noticed that these people from the Heavenly Demon cult seemed to be targeting him. Perhaps the Heavenly Demon cult had discovered that he had disguised himself as Bai Ying and killed the leader of the Demon Blade sect at Shanhai Pass. Tianyang, of course, would not wait for death. In the Great Void Secret Realm, he had to strike first. Yi Qingyu is dead? Song Xing is dead? And Luo Haiping Jiang Tao, and she are all dead? Meanwhile, within the Sky Demon cult, an old man was glaring at the shattered soul tablets and roaring at the sky. "Who is it? Who is going against the Heavenly Demon cult? The Heavenly Demon cult's die. The Heavenly Demon cult's great void temple was sex want to die. To they they had been. To them, temple, moreover, the remaining few would probably be killed as well. As far as I know, Yi Qingyu died at Tianyang's hands. Song Xing and the others are probably the same." At this moment, a strange black shadow appeared beside the old man, its voice so cold it did not sound human. The old man calmed down slightly at that, his face darkening. "But the Heavenly Een Mountain and the others are talking about the Sky King of the Firmament Territory. Based on the information we have, it's very likely," the black shadow said. The old man clenched his fists at that, his anger calming a little as he thought back to the situation before. After learning about the deaths of his subordinates and the name Bai Ying, the old man naturally sent people to deal with Bai Ying. In the Firmament Territory, Sky Blue College naturally could not find Bai Ying, who was in the central region. However, with the Heavenly Demon cult making a move, it was easy to find him. However, Bai Ying's strength far exceeded his expectations. He actually had the strength of peak second-level C of Soul Realm, comparable to some of the elders in the heavenly demon cult. The old man paid the price of 5 peak half-step C of Soul Realm cultivators and still could not catch him. However, in the end, the people of Heavenly Een Mountain suddenly brought Bai Ying to the heavenly demon cult. The heavenly demon cult naturally could not succeed in their pursuit of Bai Ying, but they did destroy many heavenly Een Mountain branches along the way. Both sides suffered heavy losses. Therefore, Heavenly Een Mountain did not care about their status as a first-rate faction and sent people to the heavenly demon cult. Bai Ying has always looked like a youth in his 20s because he cultivates a special martial technique, but according to you, that Bai Ying was in his prime. In other words, you, a great elder of the heavenly demon cult, have been made a fool of by a youngster. The old man's face darkened even more when he remembered the merciless mockery of the people of heavenly Een Mountain. If not for Tianyang, how could he have been humiliated like that? After that, both sides investigated and confirmed a target. In the Firmament territory, there was only one person who had the ability to kill the leader of the demonic blade sect and pass through Shanghai Pass. Sky Blue College had destroyed the heavenly Een Mountain branch in the eastern part of the Firmament territory, Tianyang, known as the Sword King. This was also the reason why the heavenly demon cult had targeted Tianyang in the Great Void Secret Realm. Humph. In a dozen days, the Great Void Secret Realm will open. When that time comes, however many people he kills, he will have to endure the soul fire roasting for many years. The old man roared angrily as a ball of ghostly green fire burned on his scrawny body. Let's go. We're going to Sword Star City right now. How dare he make a fool of the heavenly demon cult and kill so many of our elite disciples? Just his life is not enough. The old man snorted coldly, then took to the air and flew toward Sword Star City. In the distance, in Gold Star City, Tianxiong and Tianping have both been killed by that Tianyang. Then, I have no choice but to act. Elder Ku Shan growled with a sinister expression. Soon, the Great Void Secret Realm will open. When that time comes, I'll destroy that brat. Meanwhile, in the heavenly Een Mountain, a pale man slowly opened his eyes. Tianyang blocked my path of cultivation, destroyed the eastern part of the Firmament territory, and made a fool of the heavenly Een Mountain. He must die. Then, Elder Ku Shan and the pale man both moved toward Sword Star City. Meanwhile, Tianyang was leisurely hunting down the heavenly demon cult in the Great Void Secret Realm. Last one done. Tianyang looked at the young man who had died with his eyes wide open and the fist mark in his hand that still had true yuan, and smiled faintly. To this day, Tianyang had killed 13 heavenly demon cult prodigies. The number of ferals that had died at his hands was uncountable. In the 3 months, Tianyang had spent 2 months cultivating or breaking through the secret realm. However, it was still the same on the last day. He had reached the terrifying number of 70,000 points, surpassing the historical record by countless times. Now, it's about time to open. Tianyang smiled faintly, and the mark of the Great Void Divine Palace appeared on his palm. Chapter 540. The gigantic space door stretched between the heavens and the earth. At the same time, a majestic aura was released from the Great Void Secret Realm itself, suppressing everyone present. Those who were fighting, escaping, hiding, and even those who were cultivating were all frozen at that moment. That was because this was the power of the Great Void Secret Realm. The power of a secret realm that was equivalent to a small world was not something these people could fight against. The only 2 people who were above the crowd were Tianyang and Lingyuan. Tianyang, naturally, was because he was the owner of the Great Void Secret Realm. No matter who the Great Void Secret Realm suppressed, it could not suppress him. As for Lingyuan, she was removed by Tianyang. After all, he could not mistreat his own disciple. It's finally over. Jun Aoyang looked at the space door in the sky and sighed in his heart. He still felt like crying. That was because in the last month, he had exhausted himself killing beasts and obtaining points. In the end, he was still surpassed by Ling Yuhan. Tianyang, 70,000 points. God knew how many people he had killed and how many beasts' nests he had destroyed. However, Ling Yuhan, 48,000 points. This was something he could not accept. That was because he F*King had 47,800 points. F*CK, Zhu Naoyang sighed in his heart. However, when he thought of Tianyang's terrifying power, he felt relieved. It wasn't difficult for him to obtain so many points with such powerful strength. In the next moment, the space door expanded again, and the pressure that was suppressing countless people in the Great Void's secret realm gradually dissipated. However, when they entered, there were more than 100,000 geniuses. Now, there were only 10,000 left. That was already the best they could do. A portion of the 90,000 geniuses died in the hands of beasts, but most of them died in the hands of humans. The greatest danger in the Great Void's secret realm was never the beasts, but the people who coveted your points. I'll be beaten when I go back, Zhu Naoyang muttered. Just as he was about to leave, the entire world seemed to tremble. It was as if at the end of this, when the seal of the Great Void's secret realm loosened, a sea of soul realm expert had broken in. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. As the master of the Great Void Mystery Realm, he naturally knew that there was indeed a Sea of Souls realm warrior who had barged in. However, there was more than one. It seems like the Great Void's secret realm is going to be lively when it closes. Tianyang smiled faintly as the Zhen Yuan inside his body started to circulate. He was not afraid of those countless Sea of Souls realm warriors at all. Putting aside the fact that this was his home ground, he had not used Xintian Wuzuan's 10,000 swords returned to origin 3 times in his mind. 10,000 swords returned to origin was a supreme-level sword art. Tianyang could only cultivate it when he reached the Sea of Soul realm. However, the 3 chances in his mind did not require any conditions. Tianyang had reason to believe that once the 10,000 swords returned to origin was used, no matter if it was a 4th or 5th level Sea of Soul realm warrior, or even a Spirit King warrior, they would all die. At this moment, the spatial door rippled, and the first Sea of Soul realm warrior walked in. In the next moment, there were countless Sea of Soul realm experts densely packed together. As far as the eye could see, there were at least a few hundred people. Zhu Naoyang's expression changed abruptly. How could there be so many? Weren't they usually waiting for them to leave? How come these powerful warriors had come in now? This did not make sense. Humph! I saw it with one look. You actually dare to stand on the mountain peak? You're courting death. At this moment, a black-robed old man hidden in the crowd was shocked. A pair of sharp eyes shot toward Tianyang. Old man Ku Shan. Tianyang felt this gaze and looked over. The corner of his mouth curved into a subtle smile. He knew that this old man disliked him very much. Therefore, when Tianyang sensed the murderous intent from Ku Shan's body, he chuckled and unleashed his heavenly sword. Sky-devouring secret technique, explode. Mountains, rivers, heaven and earth, the spiritual energy of all living beings were instantly devoured by Tianyang and turned into Tianyang's power. At this moment, old man Ku Shan screamed and charged over. You dare to kill my Han family's genius? Tianyang, pay with your life. Old man Ku Shan roared. His sharp voice resounded through the entire Great Void's secret realm. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. They looked at Tianyang, who was standing on the mountain peak, and old man Ku Shan, who was bursting with the aura of a 3rd-level Sea of Soul realm warrior. That's old man Ku Shan. A 3rd-level Sea of Soul realm warrior. This is bad. Tianyang is finished this time. A half-step Sea of Soul realm warrior from Sword Star City exclaimed. Hearing this, the faces of the other people from Sword Star City also changed greatly. Although they were not in Gold Star City, They had heard of Old Man Ku Shan's illustrious reputation. Old Man Ku Shan was powerful and ruthless. Ordinary people would not dare to provoke him. However, Tianyang dared to kill Han Tianxiong and Han Tianping, who were related to Old Man Ku Shan. This courage was indeed big. At this moment, looking at the rapidly approaching black shadow, Tianyang smiled faintly. "Old bastard, you haven't lived for a few hundred years, and you can't wait to die?" Tianyang's voice was not loud, but it still spread throughout the entire Great Void secret realm. Hearing this, everyone's eyes widened, their faces filled with disbelief. "You, Azura Sword King, are indeed number 1 on the hunting list. Yes, you are powerful, but you are at most ranked around 1500 on the spirit list. Old Man Ku Shan, on the other hand, is ranked around 700 on the spirit list. Not only did he not run away, he even dared to provoke Old Man Ku Shan? He knows that he is going to die, so he wants to die a beautiful death. After all, how can a mere Tianyang escape Old Man Ku Shan's attack?" A person walked to the side, shook his head, and chuckled. The pitch-black old man and the pale white man also looked to Old Man Ku Shan. They also wanted to know if Old Man Ku Shan could kill Tianyang. Hearing this, everyone nodded. At this moment, Old Man Ku Shan heard Tianyang's mockery, and his face turned extremely gloomy. "You are about to die, and you still dare to court death. Upper-grade Earth rank martial skill, claw-shattering sky." Old Man Ku Shan roared. In the next moment, his entire body seemed to have transformed into a huge eagle. His claws condensed true origin, and he attacked Tianyang fiercely. This was Old Man Ku Shan's martial soul, upper-grade Earth-ranked Songlong giant eagle. Transforming into an eagle and condensing a claw martial skill, the power of this move was definitely incomparably powerful. Countless eyes focused on Tianyang. Could the Azura Sword King, Tianyang, really block this move? At this moment, under countless gazes, Tianyang moved. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and the Styx sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment, the sword soared into the sky. Sky Sword Art, Third Sword, Star Burial. Boom! The huge eagle claw instantly exploded. A blood-red galaxy was released across the sky, covering the entire world. Chapter 541. One Sword. With just one sword, Elder Ku Shan, who was infamous in both Sword Star City and Golden Star City, had died. Countless people felt their hearts tremble as they looked at the bloody mist in the sky under the blood-colored galaxy. That was a third-level C of Soul Realm warrior who had used his martial spirit, used his most powerful martial skill, and even exploded with a naked killing intent. He didn't hold back at all. Yet, he was so easily killed by Tianyang. This Azura Sword King is too powerful. The Zhen Yuan cultivation of that sword just now was at the peak of half-step C of Soul Realm. A person said with a trembling voice. Hearing this, everyone nodded, their faces full of shock. A peak half-step C of Soul Realm expert instantly killed a third-level C of Soul Realm expert with one move? Tianyang did not use much Devour Heaven power. After all, against an opponent of Elder Ku Shan's level, using the Devour Heaven secret technique was like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. There were many people who truly wanted to deal with him. Even so, the crowd was still dumbfounded by what they had seen. That was a third-level C of Soul Realm expert. The old man and the pale man's faces immediately darkened. It was hard to imagine that Tianyang actually possessed such powerful strength. According to their calculations, no matter how strong Tianyang was, he had not reached the C of Soul Realm. His strength was at most around the 1000th place on the spirit ranking. And the result? Tianyang's one sword had killed Elder Ku Shan, who was ranked over 700 on the spirit ranking. In other words, Tianyang's strength was countless times stronger than Elder Ku Shan's. Perhaps he could enter the top 500. Tianyang had not truly stepped into the Sea of Soul Realm, Yet he had already reached such a terrifying strength. What if he stepped into the Sea of Soul Realm? Wouldn't that mean that he could easily possess the strength of a Spirit King? If Tianyang stepped into the Spirit King realm, wouldn't that mean that Lunar Mountain and Heavenly Demon Cult could be destroyed with a flip of his hand in Tianyang's eyes? Bai Ying and the Heavenly Demon Cult elder looked at each other, then nodded heavily. A murderous intent was emitted from their eyes. The next moment, the white figure instantly shattered the space in front of him and charged out. To be able to kill Old Man Kushan, your strength is indeed surprising. However, since you dared to offend my Heavenly Een Mountain, you will definitely die. Bai Ying coldly snorted. His pale robe coupled with his pale but handsome face made him look somewhat evil. Hearing this, everyone's heart trembled violently once again. Tianyang had not only offended the City Lord Manor of Gold Star City, but he had also offended the Heavenly Een Mountain? Just how powerful was this Tianyang's ability to stir up trouble? Definitely dead? Hearing this, Tianyang faintly smiled. Looking at the white figure charging at him, the Styx River sword in his hand began to glow. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. Your Heavenly Een Mountain is looking for death. Do you think I'll just sit there and let you kill me? Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, Bai Ying's face darkened and he snorted coldly. It's your fortune to be targeted by someone from my Heavenly Een Mountain. Instead of obediently waiting to be killed, you killed a disciple of my Heavenly Een Mountain and destroyed a branch of my Heavenly Een Mountain in the Firmament territory. All of this is a death sentence for you. Bai Ying coldly sneered. Hearing this, everyone was stunned, and a trace of anger appeared on their faces. What did he mean by being killed is a fortune? The logic of the Heavenly Een Mountain was even more despicable than a bandit's. However, the Heavenly Een Mountain was simply too powerful. Excluding the martial Holy Lands, they could practically look down on the entire central region. Therefore, even if they were angry, they did not dare to say anything. Hearing this, Tianyang was not surprised. Whether it was in his previous life or in this life, he had seen the shamelessness of the Heavenly Een Mountain countless times. The true yuan in his body circulated. This time, the true yuan swallowed by the sky-devouring secret technique was truly activated. Upper-grade Earth-tier martial technique, Een Explosion Burial. Bai Ying roared, and the true yuan of a peak second-level Sea of Soul realm exploded. Rolling Een Chi erupted from Bai Ying's body, and in the next moment, it turned into a huge energy light pillar. Immediately after, this energy light pillar shot out from Bai Ying's hand, heading straight for Tianyang. Humph! Tianyang's expression did not change, and he snorted coldly. The Styx sword in his hand flashed, and the sky-devouring secret technique instantly erupted. Peak half-step Sea of Soul Realm, first-level Sea of Soul Realm, second-level Sea of Soul Realm, third-level Sea of Soul Realm. Tianyang's aura rose to the extreme in this short instant, and in the next moment, the Styx sword in his hand blossomed with countless bloody lights. Styx sword technique, fourth style, Azura Dao. Slaughter domain, open. Rolling murderous aura, like that of hell, filled the entire heaven and earth. A streak of sword light rapidly condensed and ruthlessly slashed at the Een Chi light pillar. Boom! Murderous aura and Een Chi intertwined, instantly exploding with a deafening explosion. The entire heaven and earth trembled slightly. This was because this was the Great Void Secret Realm, and the space was extremely sturdy. Otherwise, just the aftershock alone could set off a spatial storm and kill all the spectators. But even so, countless people's expressions changed drastically, and they hurriedly fled. There was no spatial storm, but the energy ripples and chi waves could still take their lives. And at this moment, Tianyang's expression turned serious, and the slaughter domain erupted once again. He used the Void Step secret technique, and his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. And at this moment, the bloody sword light also exploded, destroying the Een Chi light pillar. Bai Ying's expression changed greatly, thinking that Tianyang was going to attack with all his strength. Countless true yuan converged in front of him. Through the exchange just now, Buying felt that Tianyang was unfathomable. One had to know that the first time he heard this name from the general director, he was still a high and mighty branch master of the heavenly Een Mountain, and Tianyang was just a small fry. He belonged to the kind of person who could kill countless ants with a flip of his hand. But how long had it been? Tianyang had grown from an ant to such a stage. A sharp killing intent flashed in Bai Ying's eyes, and in the next moment, Bai Ying circulated his true yuan, and just as he was about to rush out, "I say, are the people of the heavenly Een Mountain all so retarded?" Tianyang's faint laughter sounded, and Bai Ying's expression changed greatly. At this moment, an extremely sharp sword light ruthlessly slashed at his neck. If this attack hit, no matter how strong Bai Ying was, he would definitely die. Bai Ying did not expect Tianyang's speed and soul power to be so strong. In an instant, he had hidden from his senses and appeared behind him. "You can reunite with your subordinate." Tianyang smiled faintly, and the Styx River sword in his hand slashed out. Bang! Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and he looked at the shield that suddenly appeared between him and Bai Ying. Then, a majestic energy shockwave was released from the shield. "Humph!" Tianyang sneered, and his feet tiptoed in the air, and he moved away from Bai Ying. That shockwave naturally missed. However, beside Bai Ying, an old man covered in a black robe appeared. "Cultivation,"